Hello and welcome to 6 Part. Today I'm gonna start a new series, What If Deku Was Rejected by All Might. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
The paw of Midoriya. As I turned to look around the corner, I muttered, ha, lost them. In my right ear, the voice I know all too well said, took you long enough. Whatever happened to the whole, stick to the shadows thing? My reliable friend, Melissa Shields said. As I ascended the roof from the fire escape, I remarked, things happen, but that doesn't matter. I got him. Nice. He had it coming for a long time, she said. Alright, return home. We can celebrate then figure out what's next. As I began to move across the rooftops, I said, Roger that. It's been about a month since I became a vigilante. My birth marked the beginning of it all. My mother passed away approximately half an hour after I was born, and I spent some time as an orphan after my father left as soon as she announced she was expecting. Orphan, cursed child, bastard, and the cherry on top? Not a quirk. I experienced every negative thing that could happen to a child. At the time, being adopted was the best thing that could have happened to me. The important word is, back then. As it happens, I was taken in by some filthy drug addicts who, for whatever reason, wanted a child. I never asked because I was afraid it would blow up in my face. So, until high school arrived, I forced my way through that hellhole. Let's talk about junior high before we move on. Running laps through hell is how I would sum it up. Because I was constantly being bullied for being quirkless, it seemed like the rest of the world had forgotten how to properly raise children. The last thing I wanted was for them to have more ammunition to shoot back at me, so I kept the other things from them. Since I only had two things left, my dreams and my hopes, I turned the other cheek and accepted it like a man. Becoming a hero, not just any hero, is my dream. The greatest hero, but I couldn't shake the thought that I was quirkless. In other words, I didn't possess a unique ability like practically everyone else, but that didn't weaken my resolve. The fact that All Might, my idol and the current #1 hero, told me directly that I couldn't possibly hope to be a hero and that I should instead become a police officer or something similar broke my resolve. Now, I was depressed, even crushed, at the time. Being told that I could still become a hero and disprove everyone was the only thing preventing me from jumping off the school roof. I believed that I had no chance of becoming a hero and that I would need a spectacular power to do so. Then I came upon this American comic. I was able to read the main idea of it because of my A in English. It narrated the tale of a man named Bruce Wayne, who became a superhero using only his natural strength and a few devices. That made me consider the possibility that I might emulate him. Even though I didn't lose my parents to a spooky clown villain, I could still be a hero in my own right. That clarifies the why, so let's move on to the how. I had nothing at first, which is how I became a vigilante. I was in my senior year of high school. I made the decision to take the UA entrance exams as a kind of joke and because the universe has given me so much garbage that it had to balance out eventually. Then, whether on purpose or not, the teacher chose to tell the class that, and I was now made fun of. Thank you so much, I truly appreciate it. Since I'm not a moron, I chose the general course because I would be killed if I took the hero's course exam. I now had 10 months to do anything I wanted, train, study, pray, or anything else. I made the decision to clean up the beach that had turned into a dump as a combination of training and a public service that is unlikely to be recognized. A collection of random trash items of various sizes and shapes that worked different body parts made for a good workout. I continued to train using a metal pole I discovered in the debris. 10 months later, the beach is immaculate, and all of the trash has been dumped onto the parking lot for the garbage people to handle. After further training, I made the decision to return home because I was happy with my work, which continued until it was nearly evening. I decided to get something to eat as a celebration for cleaning and the exam that was tomorrow morning because my parents didn't care as long as I got home. At that point, everything went wrong simultaneously. After a satisfying meal, I was on my way home when I heard a voice. The voice said, "Let go," sounded feminine. There was another voice, too slurred to distinguish, however, I made the decision to invest. A blonde girl who appeared to be about my age, if not a little older, was being attacked by a man who was furious. Probably intoxicated. In any case, I must assist. I yelled, "Hey," and they both turned to face me. I said, "Let her go." With claws emerging from his knuckles, he asked, "Or what?" He must have had a quirk that allowed him to see right through me and let go of the girl to approach me. I used my fist to strike him in the face after he slashed me across the chest. He was unconscious as a result of my training and his intoxication. But when I saw that my fist was covered in blood, I was terrified beyond belief. I believed that I was going to jail because I had punched a man. I quickly left the scene before the victim had a chance to see me. She yelled, "Wait," but I left before she could see my face. I took the test the following day feeling both anxious and excited. Despite being quirkless, I aced the written portion and passed the practical. In any case, the practical aspect wasn't particularly challenging. Anyway, I was on my way home. Then, as he was making his way to the front, I noticed a red-haired child talking to his pals. Close behind them, I listened. Yesterday, they were discussing a story in the news about someone knocking out an intoxicated attacker. The stress left my body as soon as I heard the word, knocking out. I'm okay because I didn't kill him. They went on to discuss how the girl I saved told the police and news about what had happened, but from what they said, it didn't seem like she had seen me or heard anything about me. After the tale was finished, I heard acceptance and acclaim. Even though there were only 2 of them, it's still better than none at all. I was conducting night patrols during the few weeks before I received confirmation that I would be traveling to UA. I stole a leather jacket, a beanie, and a bandana from my adoptive father after learning on the first night to be more cautious about who I am. I also stole one of my adopted mom's sunglasses. They confronted me about it, but I lied wholeheartedly. They didn't believe me, but after arguing with me for about half an hour, they gave up. Thus, I was able to stop several assaults, and before long, my name. Specifically, the image was spreading. There is a new vigilante on the loose, according to the news. Heroes despise me, but based on my observations of the town, some people think well of me. After I received my letter of acceptance to UA, things began to improve. Then, the world decided to pull me back down a peg because I was doing too well. I was literally stopped in the hallway on my first day of school when someone behind me said, "Hey you." I turned to see a girl. The same girl I rescued from my first patrol, which was actually a convenient coincidence rather than a patrol. I asked, "Why yes?" after turning around and seeing that there was nobody behind me. After glancing around, she turned to face me and said, "I need to talk to you, can you come with me?" Ordinarily, you wouldn't follow a total stranger. However, it shouldn't be too bad because she was a student here. I trailed after her to a quiet area of the school. I said, "So what did you need?" She then posed a query. She asked, "Are you that same guy who saved me from a drunk assaulter?" Before I could respond, I stiffened up, but conveyed astonishment. I said, "No, what would make you think that? Because I don't want anyone to stop me in my tracks when I'm just getting started." Well, when the man started to run from the scene, his entire head of hair was revealed. "Green and wavy just like yours," she replied. That's just a convenient coincidence," I replied, with a stammered, guilty-sounding voice. However, she didn't seem to be finished. Well, if that's not convincing, then for the split second he turned to face the street light. I saw freckles, 4 in a diamond shape, like yours. And green eyes. Like yours, she continued. Genetics is breaking. I mentally cried out, still that's not proof. With a sigh, she grabbed the hem of my shirt and said, "Okay, I'll prove it 100%. Hey wah." She raised it to its full height, exposing my chest scratch. I saw the man get a slash across his chest. "Now where did you get a slash this big? And don't say you fell, because that's pretty much impossible," she continued. "Fine," I replied, "I'm the vigilante, she has me. I just wanted to see if you were the guy who saved me from the drunk, but no way you're that vigilante," she said, her eyes widening at the information. "Before you ask, I still find it hard to believe how foolish I was when I said, 'Why yeah, I am.'" I realized there was no use in lying at this point. But how? Why?" she inquired, utterly taken aback by the revelation. Her shocked expression softened into something like sympathy as I said, "I'll just explain why. It was when I read a comic book that I decided to be a vigilante. Needless to say I was crushed. The one thing that was keeping me going was now taken. All of this started when I was told, by a pro hero I admired, mind you, that I couldn't become a hero because I'm quirkless. She gave me a disbelieving look and said, "Why you can't be serious." I am half serious. There were many other factors. The comic book was one of them. Sure, it was fiction, but it made me think that I could do it. The other was the fact that I was quirkless. I was told that I needed a quirk to become a hero. Which angered me. Not just because it crushed my dream, but it was a stupid status quo. Just because you have a flashy power doesn't mean you can't help people. I want to show the world that Quirkless can get the job done. Now the final reason. I said before getting onto the bench. Sit down. This is a long tragedy that is my life. She sat down beside me, and I filled her in on everything. Once more, it didn't seem wise to share your life story with a total stranger. But whatever, I need to let out some steam. She listened in stunned silence to the Shakespearean tragedy that was my upbringing. All she could say was, "I'm sorry." "Don't apologize, you didn't have anything to do with it," I responded. "So, what do you plan to do?" I inquired. She questioned, "What do you mean?" "Well, you can either pretend this conversation never happened, or turn me in to the police and pros, who hate me for stealing their work for the sake of vigilantism," I replied. Her statement, "Well, how about option 3, perplexed me. "I can help you," I said. "No, why not?" she questioned. "Because associating yourself with a vigilante is a bad idea. You'll have no chance of becoming a pro if you do," she declared. "I can't be a hero." I understood what she meant when she said that. "I'm quirkless as well. The only difference is that I abandoned my goal of becoming a hero to become like my father," she clarified. "I'm a part of the support course, but what you told me, and the reason why you're doing this," she continued, "you can become a symbol of hope for quirkless people everywhere. You're doing a good job so far." She smiled and said, "So instead think of this as a thank you from me for saving me by letting me upgrade your terrible excuse of gear," she grumbled. I would have argued against it. However, she had the gear exactly right. I teamed up with Melissa Shield in this way. She served as my heavenly eyes, guiding me and advising me on what to do in case I needed it. In just a few days, she installed her own personal camera system throughout the nearby communities of Dagoba, Hosu, Kamino, and Mustafu. She also created a helmet for me. It was an actual motorcycle helmet that had been upgraded to hell and back. It has 3 functions: a communications device, a fan that was very considerate, and a visor that was completely black on the outside but had a screen inside. In viewing mode, I could see normally. In X-ray mode, I could see how many people were there, even through walls. And in binocular mode, I could zoom in for a better view. My attire came next. She gave me one of her black leather jackets, which she had gotten from her hometown, because she said that I had to be stealthy above all else. The benefits of being slightly shorter no longer fit her. She also gave me a police vest that she was making. With or without quirks, it was bulletproof. Impervious to sharp objects, whether due to a quirk or another factor. Shockproof, fire and heat resistant. She then took me shopping late at night to buy black sneakers, 2 black baggy pants, and a second jacket in case my current one is torn. I offered to cover the cost. However, she persisted. She inquired, "Do you happen to have 13,000 yen?" It dawned on me then that I was completely broke. "No," I mumbled in embarrassment. As she paid for everything, she said, "There you are. Anyway, let's get back to the armor. Physical attacks are the only thing the vest isn't good for, but those shouldn't be an issue given the new toy she made me a while back. These arm braces Melissa made for me are so strong that they could withstand 3 full blows from All Might before breaking, enabling me to withstand any blow. They even came in black to match the jacket, so I should be able to handle anything as long as I don't fight with him. My weapons, however, were the main attraction. One for close combat enthusiasts and one for adversaries who prefer long range. My detachable staff with an activated stun baton at the end is my close combat method. I could use that if the target was vulnerable to electrical attacks. Regarding long range, an adjustable voltage stun gun is a simple weapon that doesn't need to be ostentatious. It just needs to do the job. The stun gun can be adjusted based on the target and is not intended to be lethal. There are only 3 settings: average height and weight, tall and heavy people, and short or thin people. Even I can't ruin it because it has pictures. Although Melissa stated that they should be used as a last resort, the staffs can be used as stun batons, which is activated by pressing a button. Melissa is waiting for me to celebrate, so enough about looking back. I was standing on our apartment's roof. I removed the vest, jacket, and helmet, disconnected the staff, and packed everything into my backpack. I then made my way to our apartment by descending the fire escape. Thank goodness there's a fire escape in her room. Before she let me in, I rapped the window 3 times. As I placed my belongings beneath my bed, I remarked, "I smell a mission accomplished." She inquired, "Did you leave the note?" She rubbed the back of her head when I complimented her, saying, "Yup, quirkless, we get the job done night shot. Brilliant. Awesome name by the way." She returned the compliment, saying, "It was spur of the moment, the mantra was all yours." We had small rice cakes and cola to celebrate. After we were done, we made the decision to talk about our next course of action. She looked at her computer, which she had altered to hell and back, and said, "Look, small-time villains are good. They help get your name out there, causing the villains to think twice. But as far as I could tell, the crime rate hasn't dropped. So, we need to step up our game," I responded. Pulling up an article, she said, "Bingo, and I know just the guy." I said, "No way. Isn't that suicide? He has killed many pro-heroes, and mortally wounded some of them. This mission will be hard and dangerous. But he is just as bad roaming the streets at night." She replied, "But think of the publicity, a lowly vigilante, takedown hero killer. The name Night Shot will be talked about for ages," she continued. "Yes, we would be well liked, but more than anything, I want this hero killer to be eliminated because it will have a significant impact on Japan." I said, "Okay, I'm in." As she activated her camera system, she remarked, "Awesome. Which reminds me, so from what I've seen, the hero killer was last seen in Hosu. Will he strike there again? Worth a look." "Got it. I'll patrol there tomorrow," I said while yawning, "but for now, I'll take a quick shower and head to bed." Melissa shouted, "Hold on, did you do your homework?" Before I washed away my fatigue, I said, "Yeah, I have to keep my cover." After that, I got into my pajamas and lay down in bed. Everything is going well so far. And Night Shot will be all over the news if I can make this one work. Unbelievably, I'm eager. The POV of Midoriya. Melissa and I were looking up the hero killer's locations. The students are constantly hearing the name Night Shot. Some were negative, but the majority were positive. Primarily from a student in class 1A. As he walked towards school, he pushed up his glasses and said, "While what they are doing is a great service, they should just leave this to the pros." He said, "I don't see what is so positive about the vigilante, Night Shot." "But Iida, he caught some villains. Isn't that a good thing?" a brown-haired girl asked. Like I said, what they are doing is good, but they're doing it unlawfully. They don't have the legal authority to be doing their actions. Iida continued, and it isn't confirmed that they are a male or female. Or if they are solo or working with someone else. I made the decision to keep quiet because I don't want to give the impression that I'm biased by speaking up. We learned about the sports festival in class, which is actually advantageous because I can make myself appear bad without coming across as suspicious. Everything appeared to be going smoothly until lunchtime, at which point I was abruptly stopped. "Young Midoriya is here," claimed All Might, gesturing toward me. I said, "Yes, All Might," and said, "Don't look suspicious." As he held a small box, he asked, "Care to have lunch with me?" I said, "Sure, I'll go get my lunch right now. I have a really bad feeling about this." "Well, hurry back," he yelled vigorously as he returned to the hallway. I quickly ducked out of the student's line of sight and took out my phone to send Melissa a text. "MI. All might be on me, code blue. Me. What took place?" "MI. I'm not sure, but I believe he's suspicious because he asked me to join him for lunch." "Me. How is that possible? Have you previously interacted with him?" "Me. It doesn't matter. Just make sure you don't do anything that might reveal our identities." "MI. I understand. Nothing will go wrong, and I'll be all right. I purchased my meal from Katsuden's Lunch Rush." I went to the lounge, where All Might was seated after getting my lunch. All Might reverted to his slender form and said, "So, did you hear about that vigilante?" he asked. With a piece of pork in my mouth, I said, "I have. It was all over the news. Keep your cool, remain sensible." Well, I remember him saying something like, "Quirkless, we get the job done, how do you feel about that?" replied All Might. "If you ask me, I think it's cool someone that is quirkless is not letting that stop him. But it's still against the law, so I don't know, mixed feelings. This is the exact opposite of an interrogation." "I see," he replied. "Anyway, moving on. I'm glad you're not like that vigilante, and still sticking to your dreams, regardless of what I told you," he replied. "Well, it will be hard, but I will try my hardest," I replied. "I know you will. Now the sports festival is coming up. You probably already heard this, but you should try your hardest, and try to stand out." All Might continued, "If you a quirkless student does well against a bunch of students with quirks, you will get not only some press, but also some eyes from scouts." He said with his arms extended, "This is your chance, to make one step closer to become a hero." "Thank you, All Might," I said as I finished my bowl. "And one more thing. I would like to apologize," he replied. "For what?" I inquired. "For telling you that you cannot become a hero without a quirk." I could tell it crushed you when I said that, but no, it was for your own safety, he continued. Water under the bridge. I replied, besides, I was too stubborn to listen. His muscular form roared. Ahaha. That stubbornness has allowed you to try and become a hero, he exclaimed before reverting to his skinny form and spitting blood from his mouth. Anyway, I regret what I said, but I'm glad you didn't listen to me. Ring. Well, lunch is over. The mighty replied, that's all I wanted to say, you may leave. I bowed and said, thank you All Might. I then left to return to class. Everything went smoothly in class. I waited for Melissa outside the gate after classes ended. She hurried over to me and apologized for being late. Then, she leaned in and said, All Might wanted to talk to me too. I inquired, what happened? She glanced around before whispering, I'll say it home. I returned the whisper, good idea. After we got home, she told me what had transpired. So we were talking, mainly about how my father was doing, but he started off with us, night shot, she continued. I said, what did you say? He mainly asked my opinion on us, and I lied saying that while what he was doing was a good thing, he's doing it without legal authority. So missed feelings, she clarified. Okay. So exactly like how I said it, I replied. She questioned, wouldn't that be suspicious? I don't know, I think we're good. I responded. There was so much we could say, I feel like that was the most popular opinion on the subject. I responded. So what's your plan for the sports festival? She asked, adding, I hope you're right. At first I wanted to lose, so no connections could be made to Night Shot and I responded. But at the same time, I want to do well, because field training, I replied. I thought that wasn't extended to first years, she replied. Well, All Might hinted that they were. I responded, so I get the feeling that regardless of if I win or lose, I'll have to do field training. Whether it'd be from offers or a predetermined list of heroes for first years. I clarified, so I'm at an impasse here. She responded, no, I think we can make it work. How so? I inquired. Simple, do well in the festival. If you do, then you can get offers, hopefully different ones at different areas. So when we find where the hero killer is, she began. Then I could defeat him, all the while establishing an alibi of the internship, I said. Her response was, exactly. But it all comes down to you doing well in the festival. Well, I don't have to win. I just have to do well enough to get some offers. So the final part, I replied. Before moving to her work table, she remarked, that sounds good, but if you want any chance of beating some of those guys, you need some gear. She questioned, but wouldn't that draw attention? No, a quirkless student fighting other students without any help? They'll commend you for your bravery, but they should expect you to have some help. I won't stand a chance, but I'll help you win. All that matters is that you get the offer, she replied. I said, oh okay. After she finished making my makeshift weapon, I waited and she gave me 2 hand braces. As she produced a pair of shoes, she concluded, this should work. This will help you pack a punch. As for mobility, this is a basic pair of rocket boots. This should be more than enough to make it to the final event. Here is hoping. We don't even know what the events are, I responded. You've accomplished things that a quirkless person could only hope to accomplish, so this should be nothing, she said with a comforting smile. Well, I'm sure you can win. I gave her a quick glance before embracing her and saying, thanks for everything. Before pulling away to face me, she laughed and gave me a hug in return. Well, I wouldn't say everything, especially since we haven't even started yet. She smiled ecstatically and said, we will make the world a better place, Izuku, even if the heroes hate us. Returning the smile, I said, we will, Melissa, we will. The POV of Midoriya the sports festival is taking place today. I think I finally figured out how to use the rocket boots, though it took some time. Melissa and I met up as everyone was getting ready and untroubled. As she assisted me in putting on my braces and boots, she said, okay, now remember. You don't have to win, you just have to get to the final event at least. As I stretched, I whispered, got it. What about you? Well, it doesn't matter if I make it, she replied, not like I could do it. I straightened up and said, right, I won't let you down. She gave me a wide-eyed look, then laughed and said, I know you won't. She then patted my shoulder and said, now, the boots have limited fuel, at most 7 minutes, so don't use it too much. She then turned me around and shoved me in the direction of the door, saying, now, get out there and get far. I gave a nod and made my way to the enormous door that marked the beginning. I could already see issues from here. For instance, the throng of students clogging it up. Similar to that, right now. Present Mike exclaimed, The students are trapped in the first obstacle, the door. Mr. Aizawa said, "We know, you don't have to yell." Students were fighting to get out of the crowd. I couldn't waste time, though. I clung to the shoulders of the person in front of me and ascended. "OWW. Hey!" exclaimed the individual. I screamed, "Sorry," as I jumped, stood on her shoulders, and triggered my rocket boots, flying out the door and soaring over the students. "He could fly," exclaimed Present Mike. "OWW. Anyway, it makes sense that he would need support items. He is quirkless after all," said Mr. Aizawa. "Well, this quirkless hero is flying into first place, ahead of Todoroki," he screamed. "Okay. I must now," a loud voice shouted, "Deku," as I heard a loud explosion behind me. No mention of Kachan. He sped after me and yelled, "You worthless piece of trash. Get back here." He was getting closer to me. I must fly. Boom. Present Mike exclaimed, "They have reached the first obstacle, the robots." I shouted, "Shoot," as I swooped down quickly, swooped past his legs, and began to run. The others will what, so why waste my fuel flying away from the robots? Someone with half red and white hair sprinted past the robots, completely freezing them, and then turned them back to normal. As he ran toward me, I gaped at it in disbelief. Before sprinting toward the next challenge, he uttered the words, "I need to win this. Stay out of my way, or there will be consequences. Let's get back to the robots." I saw Bakugo flying over the robots and coming at me with a furious expression. It's time to run. I ran out of Bakugo and reached the next challenge. There was a huge chasm with several ropes attached to other pillars. As I can see, Todoroki had already overcome the second obstacle and was well ahead. I could hear Bakugo shouting, "Deku," as he approached. Actually, everyone is getting closer. Think. I understand. I grabbed hold of the middle rope, snapped it off the starting plateau, and leapt off. "Midoriya has jumped off," exclaimed Present Mike. "What is he doing?" inquired Mr. Aizawa. I desperately clung to it, using my rocket boots to gain speed. The swing's force was unexpectedly powerful, but I had to wait for the swing's peak. Right now, I lost control and flew across the chasms, arriving halfway through the second obstacle. I anticipated seeing Kachan ahead of me, pursuing Todoroki. I cannot afford to take my time. After breaking another piece of rope, I launched myself over the second obstacle and into the third and last one. A minefield. Near the halfway point, I witnessed a fight between Bakugo and Todoroki. After I arrived, everyone else caught up to me and began moving slowly across the field without pausing to reflect. However, I had to move on. Quick. How can I accomplish that? Running across would only cause me to explode and perish. I could fly over there. However, they will simply pursue me as soon as I get past them. Hold on. My plan is so ridiculous that it might work. All I need now is a thud bang. When I turned around, I saw that a student had knocked off a sign and was now unconscious. Hold on, that's it. I sprinted over and picked up the sign. It'll have to do, even though it's enormous. I was able to split the sign in two. Present Mike shouted, "Hey Midoriya, that'll cost you 1,000 yen. "Do you ever shut up?" shouted Mr. Aizawa. Everyone looked at me, but promptly disregarded me in order to carry on with their fun. "What's he doing?" inquired a student. "Don't bother. He's probably given up and started trashing the school in rage." Another, with earphone jacks as earlobes and purple hair, remarked, "Oh, I'll demonstrate your surrender." It took some effort, but I started extracting some mines. However, I was able to stack 5 of them. "Let's get started," I shouted. "Nothing," as I crashed into the mines, setting off a massive explosion that sent me hurtling for the exit. Alright, that was very fortunate. There was a very real chance that this would have sent me in a different direction. I was heading for the door. Present Mike exclaimed, "Midoriya is soaring towards first place," as I looked down and saw Bakugo and Todoroki staring up at me in shock. Scratch that, he's taken first place. I was losing speed, so I slammed the sign onto the ground, causing a mini explosion, and activated my rocket boots while they were stunned. They ignored each other and started running towards me. I could hear the explosions and the ice forming while I was in the air. I was getting closer and closer to the exit, and they were getting closer and closer. Present Mike exclaimed, "This kid is amazing. WHO is teaching him?" "Snipe is the teacher for the support course, but this seems entirely self-taught," said Mr. Aizawa. Present Mike exclaimed, "You heard it here first. Eraserhead thinks Snipe is a terrible teacher." "Wait. What?" said Mr. Aizawa. As the Stadwim's blinding light grew brighter and larger, Present Mike exclaimed. WHO would have imagined in this race that the climax would be a non-stop mega mix of surprises. Present Mike said. The first one to make it back to the Stadium is the first place winner. As I broke through the door and arrived at the stadium, followed closely by Bakugo and Todoroki. The quirkless student Izuku Midoriya is our champion. I reached the center and then fell to the floor. I succeeded. Nothing could spoil this moment. I had won the first round. Deku. This moment is being ruined by something. Who do you think you are? Beating me. A quirkless loser. Beating me? I sat back up to confront my soon-to-be aggressor. He walked over, his voice angry. You did it, Midoriya. A voice shouted behind Kacchan. When he and I turned around, Melissa was running to embrace me and whispering, we need to refuel before the second round starts. I said, wait. How did you, did you think I wasn't going to participate too? She inquired as she removed the item from the other side. I built this jetpack, grapple hook hybrid in class with a classmate, Mei Hatsume. She used the one she finished. While I made some adjustments. She continued, oh, and thanks for taking all the attention away, I wouldn't have, sir. Kacchan said, okay. Who the FK are you? I'm Melissa Shield, and that's not a nice tone. She continued, especially since you lost to a quirkless, and was only 2 places ahead of another one. She responded. Wait. You were 4th? I inquired, how did you? I didn't even. She stated plainly, like I said, I didn't want to get their attention, so I waited. We left an irate Kacchan yelling and raving at us as we made our way to the break room, and I got back up and said, okay, now let's go. What's his problem? Inquired Melissa. I said, it's complicated. I'm an inventor. My work is complicated, she replied. She softened to a somber expression as I said, true. He was my childhood friend, and junior high bully. He had a quirk. I didn't, and now he treated me as an underling, below him. As we entered the house, I added, so, add that to the list of reason why I'm doing this. I removed my boots so she could refuel. Well, you beat him, she replied, so that will at least knock him down a peg. That. Or make him angrier. I replied. She handed me back my boots and said, well, when you beat him again, that will really shatter his ego. Okay, I have a bunch of fuel canisters here, at least 5 left in case you make it to the finals, she said, packing her bag into a locker. Midnight said, will everyone please come down to the main stage? Melissa said, well, that's our cue. The next event was explained after she and I made our way back down to center stage. Everyone had bandanas with varying point values, and the winner of the cavalry battle was the one with the most points at the end. Other semantics include the elimination of the entire group if the person on top falls to the ground. The top 4 teams will move on, with the lowest score of 5 points going to 42nd place. The scores increase by 5 points, and the first place finisher will advance. Midnight shouted, is worth 10 million points. What sense does that have? Everyone was staring at me like famished animals when I looked around. I said, this is really creepy, guys. But it's okay. I get this because I chose to go first. Furthermore, if I also win this event, I'll undoubtedly receive numerous offers after that. We had 30 minutes at midnight to form teams of 2 to 4 people, so I went straight to Melissa. I said, Melissa, I need your help. Huh, oh yeah, that's a smart idea. She responded, I have the 4th highest point value, and with my jetpack I could help you with air mobility, she clarified. Exactly. But we need more people. But who in their right mind would wah? A girl with pink hair and crossed goggles ran towards us as a loud voice yelled, you? I need your points. Oh, hey Melissa, what's up? Anyway, I need your points to get attention for my babies, she said. It was, babies. I said. This is Hatsume, my partner in the support course, and it's what she calls her inventions, Melissa clarified. She yelled, he. Now, please let me into your team. Actually, that's perfect. I said, nudge-wise, toward the distant wall, we'll discuss strategy over there. Okay. Now with you 2 and your jetpacks, you can allow us to take to the skies. At least until 7 minutes are left. I said as we moved to the far wall. Oh, I see. Melissa burst out, then you can just take to the skies and run out the clock. It's not the most showy win, but all I care about is winning, or getting super far, I replied. Hatsume laughed and said, he, works for me. I get to show off my marvelous baby number 23. As soon as the allotted time was up, we took our places. Remember, fly for as long as you can. They'll be going after me, Should the situation call for it, I will fly away to get the heat off of you all, I replied. Melissa stated, hopefully, it won't come to that. Midnight shouted, is everyone ready? Let's show them. Get set. The power. Go, I shouted, of the quirkless. Hatsume said, but I have a quirk. Oh. Let's forget about that awkward situation. As we had anticipated, everyone hurried in our direction. Hatsume and Melissa then turned on their jetpacks and took to the skies. As he charged at us, Kachan screamed, Deku! Get your ass back here. He reached for my headband, but because I was night shot, I pushed his hand away, swiped his headband, and then grabbed his arm. Shoot, I yelled. Sorry, I have to get him off our tail, I said as I leapt towards him. What? He shot out. I muttered, sorry, before yanking his arms and flinging him back to the ground, where a strand of some kind caught hold of him. As he pulled Kachan back in, the boy who had grabbed him yelled, geez, why'd you do that for? Now you lost your points. Kachan shouted, shut up and get me back up there. I asked, are you guys alright? As I flew back onto Melissa and Hatsume. Melissa responded, yes, we're fine. Peachy keen, exclaimed Hatsume. After a few quick air dodges, we turned to see who was attacking us, but not before some purple balls started being thrown at us. A pupil. Features a small crevice from which someone can launch balls, and a dome of some kind over his back. Ha ha ha. A boy with purple balls on his head yelled, sticking his head out to mock me, and there was boisterous laughter. You won't pay you quirkless nobody. According to Melissa, Izuku. Don't. I wanted to leap off and kick that guy to the ground, but I was tempted. However, I controlled my rage. If he attends the last event, I'll then demonstrate to him what a quirkless is capable of. Then, I heard sounds. Sputter as Hatsume put it, shoot. Guys. I turned to see black smoke coming from Hatsume's jetpack and asked, what's wrong? Hatsume inquired, did I mention this was an alpha build? As we returned to land, Melissa said, we're landing. Get ready for an onslaught. She looked around at the other people. I frantically searched for the time limit. There are 10 minutes remaining. All we have to do is wait 3 minutes. I could then soar through the air and solidify our progress, but 3 minutes is a long time. An iron boy exclaimed, come on. Let's take this quirkless boy down. Another, a girl with orange blonde hair, said, he can't take us all on. He's at a disadvantage naturally. Don't listen to them, Izuku. You'll get your chance, said Melissa. As I glanced at the others, I remarked, I'm fine. Anata no QBO Erit Mat. Melissa muttered, did you really just quote that from Yu-Gi-Oh? I'm sticking to my personal headcanon, which holds that all other Shonen Jump manga, animes, except for BNHA, are real in their universe. I whispered back, shish, I said that to make me sound cooler. As the timer gradually counted down to 7 minutes remaining, the other groups hurried towards us. I put on my braces and prepared to wear my boots. I'm prepared to give my all to protect my bandana. Everyone was then motionless on the ground. A group shouted, what the, and then one team rushed around snatching most of their bandanas. Todoroki surrounded us with an ice dome and said, sorry, but the 10 million is mine. Now, you can't fly away. Present Mike yelled, 5 minutes left. The girl with the black hair in front said, so quirkless. What's your move? My move is to win. I responded. Even if I have to go through all of you to do so, I responded. Bold words. The man in front of me screamed, but can you handle this? Hunching over, I watched his calves shoot out blue flames. Recipro burst. He shouted, hurrying over to us. Todoroki made contact. However, I pushed their group away and blocked his grab. What? Exclaimed Todoroki. As we turned to face them, I said, nice trick. But you underestimated us. Never underestimate the quirkless. Iida. After them, shouted Todoroki, but there was black smoke coming from Iida's calves. He said, shoot. Engines are stalled. NGGH. Kaminari, exclaimed Todoroki. The boy with the yellow hair exclaimed, got it. Indiscriminate shock 1.3 million volts. Kaminari emitted an electric shock and screamed. As we fled the explosion, Hatsume screamed, I got this, and smashed a metal rod into the ground. The metal rod was being absorbed into the earth as the electric blast approached it. Kaminari said, Hua. Appearing stunned. Present Mike could be heard outside the dome, and Todoroki mumbled, great. 1 minute left, he cried. Deku. Todoroki, came a booming, irate voice. Kachan. Directly behind us, I turned to see steam rising from the ice. I screamed, "Get away from that wall," Present Mike shouted, 30 seconds left, as Kachan rushed over to us, breaking the ice. Kachan shouted, "Who has the points?" before glancing at the headband with 10 million points on my head, Deku. Kachan was pursuing me when I leapt off and flew away from him, and Todoroki accepted the girl's bow. Avoiding Todoroki's ill-aimed arrows and Kachan's advances was becoming more difficult. Kachan grabbed for the headband and blew my hand away. "Time's up," shouted Present Mike. Present Mike had no idea what had happened inside, so I quickly removed the boots and fled the dome. I had to prove to him right away that I still had the points. Present Mike exclaimed, "Now, let's announce the results." As the ice dome began to melt immediately. In first place with 10,405 points, Team Midoriya. In second place with 1365 points, Team Todoroki. In third place with 770 points, Team Bakugo. And in fourth place with 420 points, Team Mineta. The presenter called out to the crowd. Melissa pulled me into an embrace and exclaimed, "We did it, Izuku," she whispered. "It's a 14-person bracket." "Yeah. Who do you think is going to get the bye?" I responded. She whispered, "We'll have to see. I'm surprised we made it out," she said. Before turning to face Hatsume, who was repairing her jetpack, I said, "Yeah. I was worried there for a second. Thanks, Hatsume." She said absently, "Oh, yeah, sure, but you did most of the work." As the 14 of us gathered around her, Midnight said, "All right, students, gather around. Now, I'm sure you all noticed that there are 14 combatants, so that means that 2 of you will receive a bye. We shall draw lots to determine not only who will fight whom, but who gets the bye." Midnight demonstrated a box with the words, "Lots," written on it. Melissa was number 8 with the bye, and I was number 2 in our drawing. Who was my opponent, then? Mina Ishido, perhaps. Here are the remaining matches. Tenya Iida is leaving. I was fighting Mina Ishido. Asui Tsuyu was engaged in combat with Momo Yaoyorozu. Katsuki Bakugo was engaged in combat with Minoru Mineta, implying that I may soon fight him. It's Melissa's turn to go. Mezzo Shoji was opposed by Eijiro Kirishima. Hanta Siro was opposed by Mei Hatsume. Shoto Todoroki vs Denki Kaminari is the first round's least exciting match. As I turned to face a girl with pink skin, a voice asked, "Who is Izuku Midoriya?" And I mean that literally, she has horns and hot pink skin. I replied, "I am. Oh, the quirkless. In a fight you should be Aya." Before approaching Melissa, I said, "Never underestimate your opponents, because, you never know what they have gone through up to this point. Want to have lunch together?" I asked. Leaning in, "We need to discuss strategy." She smiled and said, "Sure. We'll meet in the waiting room. You should have that space since your match is first." So I said, "Got it. This is it. It's time to leave an impression. Will I prevail? I'm not sure. However, I'm now committed to winning." Melissa's point of view. We sat down, and I said, "So, what do you want to discuss?" As a precaution, we made sure that nobody was around and even locked the door. Before taking a deep breath, Izuku began, "The tournament. I know you said to just get far enough to get offers, but you want to win and prove everyone wrong, right?" I responded. "Yes. I want to show them that they shouldn't count out quirkless people," Izuku said, flinching before nodding. "I want to show them that we don't need quirks to be great." I took a moment to process that information. Before cracking up, "Well, it's not like I could stop you. The only way I could physically stop you from winning this thing is if we meet in the finals, which what are the odds of that happening?" I inquired. Izuku said, "Pretty high." This caught my bewildered attention. I said, "Elaborate?" "Well, think about your match. It's between Shoji or Kirishima. From what I've seen, Shoji has 6 arms, and from the research I've done from the USJ incident, it said that Kirishima's quirk is to harden his body." Izuku clarified, "So if you ask me, Kirishima's your best bet at moving on to the semi-finals." "How so?" I inquired. "His quirk is only hardening. With your flight ability, you outrange him and you can just do hit and runs until his quirk gasses out. Or, you can go through with the strategy of picking him up and tossing him out of bounds," Izuku clarified. "But I'm not strong enough to lift him or land powerful hits," I replied. "On the other hand, you have superior air mobility. Unlike Hatsume's jetpack, yours didn't gas out. I don't even know how long it could go for." Izuku continued, "There isn't an inherent time limit, so if you play the long game and stay patient, you could win that matchup easily." Izuku clarified, Shoji, on the other hand, will require a bit more finesse. I said, with his 6 arms? That's just the tip of the iceberg. Izuku responded. His quirk is Dove's dupli arms, meaning he could create other appendages from his arms, ears, eyes, mouths, even more arms. So he could, theoretically, outrange me by creating long arms? I responded. Theoretically, yes, Izuku responded, but that could be his downfall. I said, explain? This plan is risky, but it could work. Izuku responded, you need to let him grab you. I said, I already detest this plan. Let him grab you. Then use your jetpack. Izuku responded, then once you are high enough in the air, dive back down and slam him onto the stage. That sounds dangerous. I responded, injury aside, what if he lets go at the absolute last second? I'll just hurt myself and thus take myself out of the running. I replied. Izuku remarked, you're right, besides, I already have an idea for Shoji, I replied. Izuku declared, oh, well, you should have said that from the start. Well, what is it? He inquired. Simp. Over the intercom, a deep, rough voice said, will Izuku Midoriya and Mina Ishido please head to center stage? While Izuku was leaving the room, I said, I'll show you when my match starts, good luck. Okay. It's time to observe from the 1H seats. I went up there and sat down beside Mei Hatsume, my classmate. Mei said, hey, you rooting for 10 million? In reference to his previous headband. Yeah, I have a soft spot for him, I replied. When Mei said, ooh, someone's in love. Whatever keeps us from being discovered works, I replied. No, he's quirkless, I'm quirkless. I know full well the struggles we quirkless go through. I see. Oh, it's starting. Midoriya's point of view. In front of my opponent with the pink skin, I stood on the middle platform. She wore a smug smile on her face. It appears that she didn't understand what I said. Hey, she responded, you think I got a shot against Iida? She responded, it'll be important when I face him next round. Present Mike had just sounded off the match when I said, don't get cocky. He shouted, begin, as Ishido hurried her acid in my direction. As she rushed to squirt acid on my clothing, she yelled, I'll end this with one blow. I ducked. However, I didn't move quickly enough, and the drops got on my clothing, melting and disintegrating it. Present Mike exclaimed, what's this? As my shirt and pants melted away, leaving just my boxers and I. We got some fanservice. The quirkless student is built, folks, he exclaimed. Ishido was stunned by what he saw. The game is over. I grabbed her wrists and soared into the air, saying, my turn. She screamed, H-huh? Wait, as she fought to break free, she screamed, let me go. I kicked her into the air and said, if you want. As soon as she began to fall past me, I flew back down and kicked her in the stomach with an axe, sending her flying into the stage and leaving a crater where she landed. After removing myself from her, I waited for her to move, she didn't. As the audience applauded and whistled, Midnight declared, Mina Ishido is unable to battle, Izuku Midoriya is the winner. A few for the game. And others because, at the moment, I'm only wearing my boxers. Hey, Midnight. Can I have some spare clothes? I replied. With lust in her eyes, she said, sorry kid, we only have the one for you. I don't buy that for a second, I replied. As I trudged into the stadium, away from the cameras that were broadcasting this all over the world, I said, fine, we'll send them over to Recovery Girls soon. Anyway, onto the next match. I passed Tsuyu Asui and Momo Yaoyorozu, the next fighters. Fortunately, they were mature enough to ignore my bare-assed appearance as I made my way to Recovery Girls' office, where Ishido was waiting. And, more significantly, my clothing was. With a shout, Ishido said, man, that was a dirty trick. I grabbed the sealed packet of clothes, tore it open, and put on my new clothes. Dirtier than you destroying my clothes? You're lucky that it didn't destroy my boxers. Or there would have been hell to pay. I said, and what I did was well within the rules of the tournament, so suck it up and acknowledge you lost. As the results were announced over the intercom, Momo Yaoyorozu won by ring out. I sighed and took my leave, saying, you didn't take me seriously. That's why you lost. Get well soon. I sent Melissa a text. Hello, may I join you guys to watch? I have no desire to sit with my classmates. Me. Come on up, of course. Thank you, I understand. After putting my phone away, I made my way back up to the Class 1H spectator seats. As I sat beside Melissa, she said, hey, you're here. That was some match. Hey, I had to let her get close. I responded. I dodged, but it landed anyway, causing my clothes to melt. Thankfully my boxers were fine. I responded. Laughing, she said, yeah, like I need that mental scarring. After laughing together, we watched the remaining games. The poor kid with the purple hair was completely destroyed by Bakugo. I'm fighting Tenya Iida, and he's fighting Yaoyorozu. Melissa stated, his speed will be a problem. I replied, yeah, but I have the air. As she observed the remaining matches, she remarked, we'll have to see, won't we? The match between Kirishima and Shoji was a full-on brawl. Kirishima found it difficult to cope with Shoji's 6 arms fighting him simultaneously, pushing him back toward the edge. Then it took place. After dodging the other 5 punches, Kirishima shoved Shoji out of bounds, making him the winner. Sorry, he cried as he turned away from Shoji's punch that grabbed his arm. I said, that was unexpected, but smart. Melissa nodded. Yeah, but I was afraid to fight Shoji, so this works, she replied. Don't underestimate your opponents, I replied. As she kept watching the matches, she said, right, Hatsume's was strange. In essence, it served as an advertisement for her products to large corporations and investors. Shiro was declared the winner when she finished and leapt off the stage. Kaminari's matchup with Todoroki came next, and it was cruel. Todoroki surrounded Kaminari with a massive wall of ice before he could do anything, and since Kaminari was unable to get away, Todoroki emerged victorious. Well, looks like I'm up, I said, getting out of my chair. Melissa smiled warmly and gave a thumbs up, saying, good luck. I said as I made my way back down to the stage, right, meeting the tall, blue-haired boy who had calves protruding from them. You're late, he screamed, drastically altering the air. I apologize. I was tied up at the moment, I replied. As he assumed his stance, he remarked, I see. Well, it shouldn't matter, prepare for battle. I took a position after nodding. Present Mike shouted, ready? Begin, as Iida rushed at me at breakneck speed. A hand grabbed my collar before I could even react. As he began to pull me over to the edge, he said, I apologize. I turned on my rocket boots and launched us into the air, saying, I do too. As I felt intense heat radiating from his legs, Iida said, smart move. He gripped my arms and said, but I prepared for this. Reserpoburst, he yelled as he pulled me forward, sending us spinning quickly through the air. I'm forced to stop flying, which sends us tumbling in the direction of the stage. Iida pointed my face at the stage and launched a well-targeted attack. I needed to use it. At the last second, I extended my arms and engaged my braces, which allowed them to absorb the full force of the blow. During the slam, a small crater was formed. I turned off my braces to keep them hidden during the chaos as dust and debris surrounded us. As he released me, Iida remarked, that's the match. I got back to my feet and clutched Iida's shirt as Midnight said, Izuku Midoriya is. As I turned on my rocket boots and flew to the opposite end of the stage, I remarked, not even close to being done. I noticed black soot shooting out of Iida's calves. Apparently, his reciproburst leaves him open after he uses it. Iida left the stage before me, but it didn't really matter because we sailed off. We touched down gently, and I released Iida, who collapsed to the ground in disbelief. I turned to the astonished teacher and said, so as you were saying, Midnight. As I offered to help him up, Midnight said, Tenya Iida went out of bounds first. Izuku Midoriya advances to the semifinals, he accepted my offer. Iida said, I let my guard down. That's an understatement. I responded, next time, make sure your opponent is down and out before getting off of them, or toss them off stage for good measure. I said as I left. However, I heard a faint, I understand, sound. I went to watch Kachan's match against Yaoyorozu from the support spectator booth, and it was cruel. She essentially sailed out of bounds after he barraged her with explosions. Not that I had any other expectations. He will undoubtedly push himself further in order to battle me, to put me in my place, as he used to say in middle school. I'll be put in my place by him, at the summit. Kirishima versus Melissa was the next match. As I mentioned in our strategy meeting, she took to the skies right away. Due to Kirishima's reputation for close combat, he was unable to do much. He attempted to jump after her, but she would always dive down and kick him, sending him to the ground. As one might expect from the team's strategist, he is playing the waiting game. It took some time, but she prevailed. She swooped in for the kill, avoiding his punches and delivering appropriate blows as soon as she realized his hardening had subsided, as I instructed her. Melissa said, you want me to what? I replied, I want you to learn how to fight. B, but why? She interrogated. It's mainly for insurance. There can and probably will be enemies that I can't take out on my own, so having some backup will help. I said with a shaky voice, you don't have to, just a suggestion. She cast her gaze downward. She said, all right. I'll do it, before turning back to face me. As I positioned myself, I said, great. We'll start with hand to hand. Ready? I asked. She also moved into what I believe to be an attacking position. We'll take care of that. Ready. Since the month-long break, she has made significant progress. She was trained during the time she wasn't patrolling, and she has significantly improved. Of course, we haven't required her to take the field. However, it's encouraging to know she's prepared. As Melissa approached to assist Kirishima in getting up, Midnight yelled, Kirishima is out of bounds. Melissa's shield advances to the semifinals. I rose from my chair and made my way to the fighters' rest areas. Observing the matchup, I have no doubt that Todoroki will prevail. Over the intercom, Mr. Aizawa stated, Honda Zero is unable to battle. Todoroki advances to the semifinals. Yes, in that manner. I went down to the stage after leaving the rest area, but my pockets were buzzing. Me. I wish you luck, until the finals, see you. The text made me smile. Well, I hope yours goes well. Me. I understand. I appreciate your confidence. That me. It's uncommon for you to make a typo in text, haha. It does occur occasionally. After reaching the stage, I set my phone down by the exit and went in. Surprisingly, it hasn't broken yet, suggesting that Cantaloupe may be skilled in phone manufacturing. N. By the way, Cantaloupe is apple. I would have called it pear, but iCarly was ahead of me. I'm gonna enjoy this, Kachan said, grinning lethal as he made tiny explosions in his hands. I simply said nothing. He receives no response. What? Now snappy comment. He screamed, his anger growing every moment. Doesn't get a response from me anymore. Ready? Begin, shouted Present Mike. I'm gonna enjoy this, you bastard, Melissa's point of view. I'm going to love this, you bastard, Bakugo exclaimed as he hurried over to Izuku. Oh no. I said, this is bad. Mei took notice. What? Why? She had inquired. As I watched Izuku evade Bakugo's hand blast and grab his wrist, I remarked, there are 3 things you never call Izuku. Orphan, cursed child. And the worst one of all, a bastard. Snug. It sends him into a trigger state of unbridled rage. It's almost uncontrollable, I clarified. I failed to notice it, but on his first night, I heard everything. Izuku shouted, say it again. I dare you. As I was hearing more and more swings. Izuku, that's enough. He has had enough. I shouted straight into the voice recorder. I think it was the villain who yelled, stay out of this, as I heard gurgles and shuffling sounds. He muttered, night night. Then there was a thud, followed by the sound of a punch and loud cracking coming from his end. With a heavy sigh, I said, tie him up, and report back. Before I moved away from the microphone, he snarled, fine. Half an hour later, he showed up. I said, what was that? Before a shadow of darkness covered his face, Izuku uttered, he called me a bastard. I should have anticipated this. It makes sense that the terrible things he had to endure in the past would set him off. Even as a child. I pulled him into an embrace and said, I'm here to help you, like you're there to help others. But I can't help you if you can't help yourself. I tried to calm him down by saying, but, promise me, you won't lash out like that again. The unexpected embrace made him tense. He said, I promise, before giving it back. I couldn't just jump on stage, so I said nothing more, a scray. He yelled angrily, never. Call me a bastard, not like a few weeks ago, though. Or F-King what? Bakugo exclaimed, delivering another powerful blow. Izuku, however, ducked and grabbed his other wrist. He turned on his rocket boots and launched himself into the air, saying, or this. Izuku then released his grip on his wrists and punched him 3 times quickly in the stomach. Izuku flew behind Bakugo and kicked him in the back, causing him to flinch at the unexpected blow. He then punched him in the face after kicking him once more in the sides. Izuku delivered a barrage of punches and kicks at a pace I had never witnessed in my life. Dust and debris flew everywhere, but they soon vanished, revealing Izuku holding Bakugo by the neck as he delivered the final blow, flying high above him before diving back down quickly and landing a powerful punch to his stomach, sending him down onto the stage. He hasn't improved. After saying, don't call me a bastard, ever, He threw Bakugo's body out of bounds. He restrained himself. Midnight shouted, Katsuki Bakugo is out of bounds. Advancing to the finals is Izuku Midoriya. As Izuku's attack silenced the crowd, he simply dismissed it and went back inside. Hey Melissa. Your match is next, May replied. I got up and walked down to the stage, saying, oh right, but first I had to see Izuku. I found Izuku after making my way down the stairs. He drew him into an embrace after saying, oh, Melissa, sorry foe. I gave him a tighter hug and said, he called you that word, but you didn't lose control. I'm so proud of you. He said, but I got mad still. Before ending the hug, I said, but you're making progress, you're improving. Anyway, I said, wiping away the tear that was starting to form at the corner of my eye, I got a match to get to. I then began to move past him. Behind me, I heard him say, good luck. I entered the stage and caught a glimpse of the boy with the bicolor. Todoroki Shoto. He appears to be away. It was evident in his eyes. Furthermore, they appear to be different colors, but that isn't the reason. Sad. Like moping over his own resentment and grief. Even though they are extremely rare and infrequent, it makes me think of Izuku's depressive episodes at the start of our team. His face is exactly like Todoroki's, and they still occur. He's dealing with some issues. However, I have no right to enter. Furthermore, it's unlikely that he will tell me anyhow. Present Mike exclaimed, ready? Begin, as Todoroki instantly threw a huge ice wave in my direction. That can't affect me. After I flew out of the way, I was hit by another wave of ice. Before I knew it, the entire stage was covered in ice, and I was barely standing there. Melissa's shield is Una. I'm not done, I exclaimed, taking a capsule out of my back pocket. As I pressed the button on the capsule that revealed a handheld mining drill, I told myself, they said this was impossible. But look who accomplished the impossible. I began drilling through the ice. It was a cold, time-consuming, and protracted process. However, light filtered through the hole as I was drilling. I reached back for my secret weapon with a trembling hand. A grenade for concussions. As I broke through the ice and threw the grenade at Todoroki, I begged him, please work. He caught it, examined it, and threw it behind him, just not far enough to escape the explosion. Major error. I managed to escape the blast by crawling deep enough into the ice cave. Todoroki was fully on the ground when I crawled back out, and Midnight was handling it more skillfully than Todoroki. As I picked him up, I said, sorry. He was oddly light. I put his limp body out of bounds and said, but I need to win. As Midnight recovered from the blast, he yelled, TVI. Todoroki is out of bounds. Advancing to the finals is Melissa's shield. After passing Todoroki, I made my way back up the stairs. The finalist. In order to get ready for the final match, Izuku and I were given a 10-minute break. Izuku exclaimed, hey, I didn't expect that one, but that was awesome, he exclaimed. As I sat down, I remarked, though, it was cold in there. I was surprised it worked in all honesty. I bet, you drilled through his ice, brilliant, he continued. I was surprised he didn't do anything else. Izuku responded. Yeah. I would have expected him to refreeze the hole or something. Maybe he was confused by the grenade in his hands, I replied. As Izuku took off his boots, he said, maybe. But debating over theories and semantics won't do us any good. Do you have fuel? He asked. As I took out a carton of oil, I smirked and said, yeah, give me a sec. If I'm going to fight in the finals, I want my opponent to be at their best. You really need to stop watching Dragon Ball Z, Izuku replied. What makes you think I watch Dragon Ball Z? I responded. Izuku laughed and remarked, you can't fool me, you pulled out a capsule, and you're talking like Goku. Fair enough, mister. Anata no Qbo Erit Mat, I laughed, so let's just settle this argument and say we're both massive nerds. According to Izuku, agreed. While I was filling up Izuku's boots with fuel, I asked, so, want to make the finals more interesting? After deciding to enjoy myself during the finals. Izuku inquired, what do you have in mind? Loser has to take out the winner tonight, I replied. As Izuku put it, I have no money whatsoever, so deal. As I gave him back his boots and we both laughed, I let out an audible sigh and said, you're impossible, now let's go. As we made our way to the center stage, Izuku gave a nod. The roars of the crowd greeted us. When the audience cheered Izuku's name, Present Mike exclaimed, all right listeners. We have a very exciting final match here today. And in the blue corner, the quirkless student utilizing her gadgets and strategical mind. Melissa's shield. Present Mike exclaimed as the audience applauded for me as well. In the red corner, we have the quirkless boy who took this competition by the horns. Izuku Midoriya. Is the term strategic even a word? Present Mike shouted, ready? Begin, as Izuku put on his arm braces. He hurried over to me and said, I've been saving these for our battle. I took out my own weapon, pushed the button, and extended my collapsed pole to its maximum length, saying, so we're going all out? I'm game. I hurried over to him and bumped into his braces with my pole. Izuku backflipped out of the way and said, I was wondering where this was. I swung after him and replied, I could say the same about your braces. He kept avoiding my swings and then used his rocket boots to soar high into the sky, saying, hey, I used them to take the front of Ida's final attack. But let's take this to the air, he yelled as he dove towards me. Grinning, I switched on my jetpack while keeping my pole horizontal for protection. We were at a standstill in our tug-of-war game when we collided in midair. I seized the chance to get out of the way, which made Izuku sail in the direction of the stage. I threw smoke grenades at him during this time. He saw my smoke grenades after he caught himself and flipped back upwards, about 2 feet from out of bounds, but it was too late to dodge them because Izuku was engulfed in a thick cloud of smoke. Flying into the smoke, I told myself, now's my chance. The smoke was blown away by the wind from my jetpack when I was flying, but I grabbed his arms and began to fly him out of bounds while he was dazed. Midnight shouted, Izuku Midoriya is out of bounds. Melissa Shield is the winner, as the crowd went crazy over my victory. Izuku burst out laughing and grinned as he said, good job. I added, you did well too. What an amazing finish, exclaimed Present Mike. Mr. Aizawa sounded like he was finished with this whole situation when he said, I regret agreeing to this. Izuku remarked, looks like I owe you dinner, are you sure? I could pay for it, I replied. Izuku sighed and said, it's fine, I've saved up. Then what's the point of a bet if the winner is going to do what the loser has to do? He asked. From what? He is without a. Never mind. He laughed when I replied, fine. Izuku said, you won. Be happy. You sound awfully bitter even though you won the whole tournament. Can you imagine? The headlines? I asked, laughing and shaking my head. I could see it now. Quirkless Duo took Quirk-dominated event by storm. Nah, that sounds too negative. Izuku responded, I think it should be. Quirkless Duo completely destroyed the quirk-filled competition. We laughed together and started making up more phony headlines. I said, students with quirks beaten handily by quirkless students. Story at page 13. The other students gave me glares when I said, wait, I got one. Izuku must have been aware of a shocking development. The other students are super salty over losing to quirkless students. Story at 11. When the girl with the earphone jacks for her earlobes said, alright, we get it. No need to be a DK about it. Funny coming from you, Ms. He's probably given up and started trashing the school in rage, Izuku said with a scowl. Melissa and I have worked hard to get here, harder than all of you. I think we deserve to gloat. Especially in a newscaster fashion, he replied. She turned away, huffing. Izuku muttered, people like that are the worst. Well, we proved ourselves today. I nodded silently, adding, let's enjoy it. The awards ceremony soon started. Standing on the highest one, Izuku was to my right, Bakugo was furious, and Todoroki was preoccupied. Uncle Might leapt from the top of the stadium to kick off the ceremony at midnight. Following a minor misunderstanding, All Might began awarding medals, beginning with third place. Todoroki's went well, with All Might whispering something into his ear and giving him an awkward hug. It was challenging for Bakugo because he didn't want his bronze medal to be called a piece of garbage, but All Might somehow got it on him. He only has it on his teeth. Izuku's came next, and it went much more smoothly. All Might hugged him and gave him the medal. He also whispered something. However, I was unable to hear it clearly. He will let me know if it is related to Night Shot. It's my turn now. He put the gold medal around my neck, gathered me in an embrace, and whispered in my ear, young Melissa. Congratulations. I'm so proud of you. You'll make a fine hero, or support gear designer. Thanks, Uncle Might. I returned the whisper. So, I have just one more thing to say. Everyone, please say it with me. Ready, go. He exclaimed as he stepped off the podium and turned to face the other students. Well, they were the winners this time. But listen here, anyone here could have ended up on these podiums. It's just as you saw competing, improving each other, and climbing further, even if the world already counted you out. The next generation of heroes is definitely sprouting, he said, gesturing to the sky. All Might shouted, thanks for your hard work. Plus Ultra, shouted the crowd. That was the perfect time to say Plus Ultra All Might, exclaimed the audience as a chorus of jeers could be heard. GHH, well, I thought everyone should be thanked for their hard work, he murmured. We were soon released to return to class. Powerloader complimented me on my victory in the competition, saying he couldn't even recall the last time a member of the support course took home the sports festival trophy. After that, we had 3 days off to recuperate from the competition. Izuku and I met up after school let out. Izuku inquired, were you given days off too? As I put it, yeah, 3 days. Izuku leaned in and whispered, so we have 3 days to recover. We'll discuss the next steps at the apartment. I returned the whisper, got it. Out of sight, out of mind. We hooked out medals onto a hat rack after arriving at the apartment. I said, now, what's next? We still need to look out for the hero killer. Izuku clarified, while we agreed that doing it during internships will establish an alibi for me, we still need to get a firm confirmation on his movement patterns. I said, I see, that sounds correct. That, and I need to figure out where to take you for celebration dinner, Izuku replied. Are you still thinking about that? I responded. If you didn't want to, then maybe you shouldn't have made the bet. Izuku responded, regardless if you made the bet or not, had you won we still would have gone to celebration dinner. You can't change my mind about this, so don't try. He grinned with a million watts. As he excitedly raised me up, I said, fine, I concede. He exclaimed, awesome. After realizing what he was doing, he put me back down and muttered, sorry, with a red face. I smiled and said, ha ha ha, don't worry about it. So, where are we going? Melissa's point of view. Where are we going? I said, shaking my head in laughter. Izuku remarked, a surprise, we're almost there. He led me to ask, was the blindfold really necessary? Yes, it wouldn't be a surprise if you could see it, he replied. That's flawed logic. How would I see the surprise if I don't know what it is? I replied, as we came to a halt. Before continuing to push me in the direction of the surprise, he muttered, this is why you're the strategist. Ahare, we there yet? I inquired, my smile never stopping. Yup. Here we are, Izuku said. As I took it off, I muttered, thank goodness. To see a McDonald's? I said, wow, you shouldn't have. In a fit of laughter, he exclaimed, peeved ha ha ha, oh ha ha man, you should see your face. He then composed himself and said, your surprise is right next to the McDonald's. I looked around and saw, oh my god, I said, a cat cafe? As I gave him a playful shoulder slap, he grinned broadly and said, yup, a weird business decision to put it next to a McDonald's. But it made for a hilarious joke. The fluffy kitten brigade attacked us as soon as we stepped inside the cafe. This is how the night shot duo passes away. At the hands of cute, fluffy kitties. Izuku looked at me with kittens all over me and said, I'll order us some stuff. You can play around with your little minions. I mumbled as I slowly stroked a tabby cat's head, my kitties. In addition to some attractive pastries, he brought us tea and coffee. As some of the cats made an adorable attempt to climb on my shirt, I asked, so is this the dinner surprise? Because I'm satisfied. Izuku said, no, but the reservation is in an hour, so before turning to face the window, I looked after him to see a girl with bandages who appeared frightened. He whispered, you thinking what I'm thinking? I replied, the apartment isn't far from here. Izuku whispered back, you hurry to get the stuff. I'll step in and stall as much as I can. Thank goodness I chose yesterday as a good day for late spring cleaning because I was able to move all of my work in progress support items to the UA after setting the kittens down and hurrying to the apartment. Izuku's mask, batons, his grenade belt with various grenades I made him, and my equipment were the only items left on the table ready for the support course storehouse. How did I asked him over the phone. Boom. On the other end, Izuku screamed, not good. Turns out the guy who has the girl was a demon sand monster. I screamed, shoot, where are you, as Izuku hurried indoors. He shouted, here, as he dropped the girl off. He put on his helmet and said, stay here. Fortunately, his clothes are loose enough to cover the vest. He then grabbed his batons, arm braces, and grenade belt and ran to his room to take the fire escape to the roof. The girl screamed, wait, but I put a gentle hand on his shoulder. Squatting to her eye level, I said, he has to take me to dinner in an hour, and he never falls back on his promises. He will be fine. Izuku's point of view, the man shouted, where is SHE? As I stood atop the apartment. Geez, for a girl, All of this? Night shot, I suppose. Day shot will have to be the option for today. Before turning on my rocket boots and taking off from the apartment, I ran to the edge of the roof. My cover tail. Let's say I made a pair of my own after being influenced by a certain quirkless genius. As I passed in front of his eyes, I remarked, "Geez. Someone has anger issues." He shouted, "Gra HHH," as he threw waves of sand at me, which I barely avoided. I take that back. "Someone is freaking psycho," I shouted. Melissa shouted into the microphone, "Izuku, come in." I said, "Melissa? What is it?" Melissa shouted, "Listen to me. Endeavor and a lot of other pros are on their way to subdue the bad guy. Get out of there now." She was fortunate to avoid being hit by a huge flame spear. Endeavor was getting ready to fire another one when I looked down. I shouted, "Shoot," and took off. Endeavor shouted, "Night shot," before Kamui Woods intervened. Woods yelled, "Let him go," as he pulled civilians out with his quirk. "Focus on him," he cried. "Can you get out of there? Without the guy seeing the girl?" I replied. Melissa shouted, "Yeah, just get out of there," as the communications were cut off. I ducked into a back alley and flew away from the initial carnage. I waited for the commotion to stop as police cars passed the alley. I called Melissa once more after taking a few minutes to catch my breath. I said, "Melissa, you there?" As I heard a motorcycle approach and then stop in front of the back alley, she said, "Yeah. Thankfully I installed a tracking device on your helmet as a failsafe." As I packed everything into the duffel bag Melissa brought, I removed the helmet, batons, and grenade belt. Then it dawned on me. "We have a motorcycle?" I exclaimed, feeling both ecstatic and shocked. As we ran from the creep, I noticed the girl who told me her name was Eri buckled up with a ridiculously big helmet on her head. "Yeah, it even has an attachable sidecar," she said. I asked Eri, "Are you okay?" And she gave me a look before nodding slowly. Eri pointed to the apartment and the enormous sand monster and said, "Why yeah, but what's going to happen to him?" Before turning to face Melissa, I said, "Hopefully the heroes will do their job." "What about the apartment?" I asked. She showed me the other duffel bag, which was filled with UA, and said, "I took everything that we could need in case the apartment is destroyed during the battle. Uniforms, her pole that she could extend. Which, among other things, we really need a better name for, as well as her own grenades. Everything else was stored in the support class's storehouse in the back of UA," I explained. As she gave us a worried look, I said, "Okay, now what do we do about Eri? No way in heck we're giving her back to that guy." "Well, I have an idea." As we stood in front of Principal Nezu's office, I muttered, "I hate this idea." Melissa questioned, "What other idea is there?" She ignored me and knocked on the door. "We could, oh I don't know, not tell Principal Nezu I unintentionally caused havoc a few miles away." After taking Eri, she said, "Now, it's your turn," and stepped back. The door opened and Principal Nezu appeared before I could ask why they would have to stand back. With a composed demeanor, Principal Nezu remarked, "Ah, Midoriya. What a delightful surprise. To what do I owe the pleasure?" he asked. "Well, Principal Nezu sir, you know about the massive battle, with the giant sand monster downtown? That's going on downtown?" I asked as he replied, "Well, I may or may not have been the one responsible for causing that attack." Before the radio came back from static, Principal Nezu said, "I'm sorry, could you say that again?" Sudden news update: the villain known simply as Overhaul has been defeated by the pro heroes whom were dispatched to said area. The number 2 hero, Endeavor, says that it must be because of the vigilante, Night Shot, whom was seen flying in the air with rocket boots while the villain was attacking Wilda. All we had to hear was the newscasters carrying on with their conversation. While serving Eri some mellow tea, Principal Nezu motioned Melissa, Eri, and I inside. "Okay. So what really happened?" I began. "Melissa and I were celebrating because we took first and second place in the UA Sports Festival. We decided to kill time by hanging out at a cat cafe." According to Principal Nezu, "Oh, how did that go?" "Good. For all of 5 minutes. Because Eri was running from the villain himself, though he didn't look like that at all, he was actually human looking. Anyway, springing into action, I walked over to Eri, asked what was wrong. She didn't respond out of fear, but taking a good look at her arms signaled to me that something was wrong. Deciding that I should follow my gut, I picked up Eri and flew away. The man then, somehow, turned into a giant sand demon, heck bent on getting the girl back. I flew away, the pros fought, the day is saved, I clarified. "I understand. Principal Nezu clarified. The news reported that Night Shot, the vigilante, was also flying with rocket boots. Go ahead, come up with something. Seems, some people are picking up my style. I don't know how I feel about my ideas being used by vigilantes, I replied. He took a few moments to look at me. Prior to nodding, Principal Nezu said, I see, well, any particular reason as to why you came to me first? Melissa followed suit. With all due respect, we thought it was a good idea to tell you about this now, in case the news mentions Izuku carrying a little girl high in the air away from Overhaul. The last thing we want is for him to get in trouble by not telling you, Melissa clarified. Principal Nezu clarified, oh, I see. Well done by telling me about this immediately. For now, take this little girl to Recovery Girl. I'm sure she would want to take a look at those wounds, he clarified. Not mentioning Night Shot on the school walls, we nodded and went to Recovery Girl. Aries' cut and scarred skin was revealed when Recovery Girl carefully took off her bandages once she was inside. Recovery Girl questioned, oh my, what sort of evil person would do this? The same on that was caught 5 minutes ago, I responded. And how would you know that? Inquired Recovery Girl. Who do you think got her out of the predicament in the first place? I inquired. I flew her away. Then Night Shot and the pros came to fight off the villain. Heard it in the radio in Principal Nezu's office. I replied. During our walk here, I gave this a lot of thought. Before applying fresh bandages and kissing Eri to heal her new wounds, she said, I see. Before taking a seat, she explained, she should be fine now. So what's the plan? She asked. I said, we don't know. What do you mean? You just saved this girl. I said, her name is Eri. Recovery Girl said, fine. You save Eri, and you don't know what to do next, before advancing to strike me in the head with her cane. While massaging the aching area, I said, ow, it was instinct, okay? Before letting out a deep sigh, she said, honestly, well, you'll just have to take her to an orpha. For my benefit, Melissa interrupted Recovery Girl's choice by saying, don't say that word. I'm fine, Melissa. Really, I said, trying not to be angry at orphanages everywhere. As for that option, speaking from experience, that's the worst thing anyone could go through, I replied. In response, Recovery Girl said, then what's your plan then? I took out my phone before I could respond. After the attack destroyed our apartment, I said, we'll take her in. Recovery Girl, Eri, and Melissa gave me shocked and perplexed looks. Melissa said, I'm sorry what? I showed her the news on the phone and said, by the way, our apartment was totaled. Never mind the apartment, what do you mean we'll take Eri in? Melissa responded. I led Melissa outside and said, sigh. Would you excuse us for just one moment? Why? Melissa replied, actually no, I know exactly why you want to take her in. I said, great, so can we? Look, Izuku, I know you mean well, considering you were you-know-what in the past. But we don't even know this girl, and above all else, we don't even know if the guys who worked for Overhaul would try and take her back, Melissa responded. So we'll beat the stuffing out of them when they come, and she's scarred physically, so who knows how unstable she is mentally. I stated prior to clasping her hands together, she needs somewhere where she could be loved, nurtured, and above all else, protected. I continued, besides, did you see the sad face she had on? Would you really say no to that sad face? I inquired. She appeared to be torn. Then, before I lifted her into an embrace, she gave in and said, fine. But you're getting us a new apartment. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I cried out in ecstasy, spinning her around with my joyful joy and enthusiasm. As I put her down, she chuckled at my behavior and said, okay Okahahe, calm down. We returned to Recovery Girl's office after Melissa had straightened herself out. We made out decision. Melissa glared at me after I interrupted her, saying, you're coming home with us, Eri. Sorry. I muttered, rubbing the back of my head. I am? She said, her eyes wide. Yeah, we won't let any of the bad men hurt you, I replied. With tears in her eyes, she questioned, and no needles and see cuts? I squatted down to her eye level and said, no needles, and no cuts, we won't let any of them hurt you again. So what do you say? I asked. You will finally live a normal life, full of fun and stuff. She didn't answer, but is pulling a strange face. Sorry. I forget. How do you smile? She said, and my heart leapt. Before looking at my watch, I patted her head and said, why you'll learn in time. Well. Thankfully the restaurant was far away from the battle. We could take you out to eat, Eri. She said, oh okay. After leaving the office, we started to walk in the direction of the motorcycle. They were working on the name. Melissa said, I hope you know what you are doing, as she mounted the motorcycle. I do. Oh, and I found us an apartment. There was suddenly a vacancy open, I replied. Really, where? Melissa inquired as she started the motorcycle's engine. I gestured toward the general direction of the apartment and said, literally down the block. We took a short drive to the now vacant apartment. After parking in front of it, we went inside. Good afternoon. Are you here about the vacancy? Asked the person behind the desk. Yeah. I replied, our old apartment got obliterated thanks to the giant villain attack a few minutes ago. We saw this place had a vacancy and we came as soon as we could. I clarified. I see. Well, care to take a tour of the apartment? She inquired. I said, we'd be glad to. The flat was essentially identical to the previous one. Only the paint color has changed, and the carpet has been replaced with hard wood. Immediately, I said, we'll take it. Before she left, she gave me the keys and said, really? Oh, okay. Our rent's due the first of the month. Melissa let out a deep breath and squeezed the bridge of her nose. I said, what's wrong? Before putting the duffel bags aside, she muttered, oh, nothing. I'm going to park the motorcycle inside, you unpack the stuff. Before putting the items in their appropriate closets, I said, aye, Captain. Other than the UA, she didn't bring much uniforms and anything else she could quickly gather before the apartment was destroyed. Thus, unpacking was not too difficult for me. I used my extra time to call the restaurant and let them know that we needed a table for 3. Fortunately, the change wasn't too drastic, and our scheduled time didn't change. Melissa threw the keys onto the counter and said, okay, we have to go shopping tomorrow because everything else was completely destroyed. We have 30 minutes until we're supposed to go out and eat our celebration dinner, so I said, gotcha. I looked at my watch and asked, we have 30 minutes, think that's enough time to buy Ari and us some formal clothes? She responded, yeah, I think we can manage. We were prepared for our long-awaited celebration dinner after a successful shopping trip that resulted in the acquisition of some reasonably priced clothing, a lovely white dress for Ari, and some boots. Melissa snorted when I said, yes, table for 3, under winners. She led us to our table and said, let's see. Ah yes, here we are, follow me. She bowed and said, your server will be here soon. Melissa stammered, did you really name the reservation under winners? I said, did you expect anything less? After giggling, she said, touché. She then turned to observe the ambiance and furnishings. Nice place. I heard this place has jam-packed for months. How did you get a reservation? Melissa inquired. You need a what? Declared All Might. She deserves it after working her butt off to become not only the first quirkless UA student to win the sports festival, but also be one of the few support course students to make it to the 3rd round. I want to surprise her. So please? I replied. All Might questioned, what makes you think I could even get you a reservation? Are you serious? I inquired. You're the symbol of peace, the All Might for Pete's sake. Besides, I think I recall a certain someone telling a poor, emotionally unstable preteen that they couldn't become a hero because they were quirkless. I replied that I was being overly dramatic. Pinching the bridge of his nose, All Might questioned, you aren't going to let that go, aren't you? Not unless you give me a reservation for 2, then I'll forget that ever happened, I replied. And whatever happened to water under the bridge at this point? All Might retorted, fine. I answered, look, sometimes the river gets jammed. Through sheer will, determination, Melissa inquired, you asked Uncle Might for a reservation, did you? She laughed and I said, well, shush, it was hard to convince that man. Good evening, sir and madams. Would you like to start off the evening with a beverage? Our pompous waiter asked as he brought our menus back. Melissa responded on our behalf, we'll have an iced water, and for the young lady, what's your favorite fruit? Before I could crack a joke. Apples, was her blunt response. The response from Melissa was, apple juice it is. He bowed and went back into the kitchen, saying, very well. I said, anything caught your eye yet? Melissa said, sukiyaki sounds good, what about you? I remember hearing someone from class 1A going on and on about soba, so I'll see if he's onto something. I responded, what about you, Ari? I inquired. She said, I want katsudon. Melissa laughed as I repressed my tears and joked, I like her already. She retorted, I could see our grocery bill for pork skyrocketing with her now. When the waiter came back with our drinks and to take our orders, we laughed together, but after he was gone, was the worst thing that ever afflicted restaurants worldwide, the waiting. Eri appeared extremely bored. After that, I recalled something I had taken from the Shiver operation. I produced a yo-yo. I might or might not have stolen this yo-yo from the store. Keep Melissa in the dark. In any case, Eri looked thrilled, as if she were seeing magic happen right in front of her, when I demonstrated a few easy tricks that I had learned from the orphanage's show-offs. She yelled, "Do it again! Do it again!" while Melissa and I grinned at her innocent curiosity. "Okay," I said as I performed the elevator trick, which involved sending the yo-yo down the string, looping it back onto the string with my index finger, pulling my hands apart to make it appear as though it was climbing the string, and then flicking the yo-yo back onto the string with a quick flick. Following a round of applause. Finally, after some noise complaints from other customers, our food was served. It was meh. It wasn't too bad, however, it wasn't months behind schedule. I asked Melissa, "Is it just me? Or is the food underwhelming?" "Yeah. Why is that?" she said after taking another bite. Before figuring out how to have some fun, I said, "I don't know," with a terrible posh accent. Maybe it's because we commoners don't have the refined palate for such exquisite foods. Melissa mimicked my accent as she laughed and realized the joke. "Yes, quite, how awfully careless of us." Yes, indeed. We ate and laughed at haughty rich people for the remainder of the evening. It was only there for 3 seconds, until someone got up from their chair and approached us. The woman said, "Pardon me, but I do think you are talking too loud." I shouted, "Could you speak up? What was that?" As the woman scowled at me, Melissa said, "Okay Izuku, I think that's enough." "How dare yo, mother, oh wait, she is someone I know." "Oh I know you." I responded. "You're that one girl that was on Todoroki's team during the cavalry battle," I responded. As she passed her mother, the girl said, "Oh, you recognize me? My name is Momo Yayorozu, pleasure to meet you." "I'm Izuku Midoriya, this is Melissa Shield, and Eri," I replied. Melissa greeted everyone with, "Good evening." "Hi." Eri also said hello. "Wait. Shield?" inquired the woman. Melissa asked, ignoring the woman, "What are you doing here?" "Oh, just having a night out with my parents. My mother was listening to you two talk, and she decided to say something," Yayorozu replied. "Oh sorry. We were just satirizing arrogant rich people. When your mother walked over to us and ordered us to quiet down, I mistook her for an arrogant rich lady so I started talking louder." Melissa remarked, "Izuku, you're muttering again." I sheepishly rubbed the back of my head and said, "Oh, sorry." "Haha, it's quite alright. Anyway, you two did phenomenal during the sports festival," she replied. As she waved it away, I said, "Oh, right, sorry about, beating your class so you couldn't show off your skills to the pros. I don't see why the winners need to apologize. We underestimated you too, and that's why we as a class lost," she responded. I replied, "Well that's true, Izuku," said Melissa. "But that doesn't mean you didn't kick major butt, you made it to the final event for a reason. You carried that purple boy, almost snagged my 10 million point headband, and you made it to the second round of the final event. Still, your class still has some problems," I continued. "Explain," said Yayorozu. I was going to respond, until I became aware that we were disturbing the customers. Far more than I had planned. "I'll explain at school. We're making a scene. A bigger scene than I intended," I murmured. Grasping her mother's wrist, Yayorozu said, Oh, quite right. Come mother, let's let these two enjoy their meal." I fell back in my chair as Yayorozu pulled her mother away. "Well, I totally screwed this up," I replied. Melissa remarked, "I don't know, I had fun." "You did?" I questioned incredulously. "Yeah, I drove the motorcycle away from a sand villain, we have Eri, we ate subpar food, and we made fun of rich people. Pretty much everything I wanted out of a celebration. All that's missing." The waiter said, "Would you three care for some dessert?" Melissa asked with a joyful sparkle in her eyes as dessert. "Yes, we would care for some dessert," I responded. "What would you like, Weehaw?" To Eri's attention, Melissa inquired, "Do you happen to have apple pie?" The waiter said, "Why yes, we do." Eri's eyes were now glimmering with anticipation. Melissa said, "Then we shall have that." Before returning to the kitchen, the waiter remarked, "Excellent choice." Our apple pie plates were set out in front of us after a few more minutes. I now understood why there is such a large backlog here. It's this pie. Eri's smile was the biggest as she exclaimed, "Delicious." She grinned, and she grinned. I made a self-promise not to cry. Are you crying? Inquired Melissa. What? Of course not. I just got something in both my eyes, I replied. Teasingly, she snorted and asked, what did you catch? Tears. I cried out. Eri asked, looking up from her now empty pie plate, why is Zuko crying? Melissa smiled and said, he's just really happy. Eri said, I'm happy too, should I be crying? She teased, no. Izuku here is a special case. I said, hey, but was too preoccupied with happy tears to shout. My tears stopped, and we requested the check. I grabbed my pocket, however, I witnessed Melissa giving her credit card to the waiter. I glanced up at her, only for her to whistle without cause. I whispered, you're the worst, and she laughed in response. She said, you could pay for the next dinner, I said with a mocking huff, fine. Following Well, we returned to our new apartment after Melissa paid for dinner. Melissa inquired, so Eri, how did you like it? She smiled and said, it was amazing, despite the fact that she was obviously won over by the apple pie. It doesn't matter, though. We had victory dinner, saved Eri, and, above all, restored her smile. All in a single day's labor the POV of Midoriya. It's time for field trainings as classes resume. A list of people in the general course who received offers flashed on the screen. And it was depressing. The only person who received offers is me. Since I was the only one who survived the first incident, I don't hold it against them. In an attempt to avoid adding insult to injury, Mr. Snipe said, congrats to Midoriya for his offers. And utterly failing at it. These are my offers, he said, handing me a stack of papers. After that, Midnight entered and asked us to choose names for our heroes. I quickly texted Melissa to ask for assistance. I need a fictitious hero name. Please help me. How about Night Shot or something similar? That's hilarious, now assist me. Me, Turbo or something simple. I think it's adequate. How is Eri, too? Me. Powerloader appears quite uneasy in her presence as she speaks to him. She hasn't exploded yet, at least. Me. What is the intended meaning of that? I had heard terrifying tales about Hatsume in particular. Me. Powerloader made her take a break since she was only getting 1 hour of sleep and hadn't taken a bath in a week. Alright, that's more information than I ever wanted. Before I heard anything else that I would never want to hear, I shut out. After writing down the basic name, I presented it to the class. I was informed that it was basic. However, it was successful. In any case, classes were soon dismissed for lunch, so I went to meet Melissa and Eri. Only for 3 students to flag me down after I located them. Izuku Midoriya, right? Inquired the tall, fair-haired one. As he began to laugh, I felt a tug at my pants and said, yes? Who wants to know? The one with the black hair said, Mirio. You're scaring the little girl. Who said he appeared to prefer being somewhere else. The blonde one. Oh, my apologies, Mirio said. As she slowly emerged from behind my leg, I said, it's okay Eri, he's nice. So what did you need? I asked. Sir Night-Eye wants to speak with you in Principal Nezu's office, Mirio replied. I said, I'm sorry what? Sir Night-Eye was leading a case about a man named Kaichisaki. He stated. Eri recoiled at the mention of that name and retreated behind my leg. Mirio offered an apology and continued, anyway, he's been arrested a few days ago, and witnesses saw a boy, about your height, carrying a girl. That looked like her, in the air with rocket bow. I said, I see your point. Can she come? Yes, sir would like to see all 3 of you, Mirio replied. After nodding, we made our way to Principal Nezu's office. Where Nezu sat on a chair beside a gaunt man. We sat down in front of Melissa Shield, young Eri, and Izuku Midoriya, and Nezu said, welcome, Melissa Shield, and youthful Eri. I've been told you have questions for us, I responded. Night-Eye looked at me and said, indeed, mainly about the incident. Where were you a few minutes before the incident? He inquired. At a cat cafe. We saw Eri running, and I rushed to help her. One thing led to another, and the guy who shall not be named, tried to attack us, I clarified. I see. Said Night-Eye. Simple inquiries followed, such as where we were during the attack and what we did after obtaining Eri. When it was finished, we could leave. Just one more thing. Nezu, do you mind if I speak to Midoriya alone? Asked Night-Eye. Nezu led the girls out and said, not a problem at all. Girl, let us be off to give these 2 their privacy. Now, there are a few more things I would like to ask you. Melissa's point of view. Eri and I ate our lunch at an empty table. I was really anxious. I hope it has nothing to do with Night Shot, but I had no idea what they were discussing. Did Izuku take off his mask? No, I had my camera system, so I could see him everywhere he went. On the roofs, in the back alleys, even on the road. I always kept a watch on him, and he had never previously removed his mask while on patrol. It's probably pointless for me to worry. Indeed, he is there. As Izuku sat across from us, I said, "Hey, how did it go?" I whispered. Izuku pulled out a stack of papers and said, "Oh, just some questions about he who shall not be named." My eyes widened in realization, and I said, "What we should be focusing on is my field training." He nodded, and I said, "We'll talk at home." Classes soon came to an end, and we went home to talk strategy. Investigate the hero killer as well. Izuku gave me a startled and worried look as I said, "He's attacked Ingenium." I nodded, and he said, "That's Iida's brother, Tensai Iida." I pulled up the feed and explained, his last attack was in Hosu. And our cameras has found him, standing on a water tower overlooking the city. Fast forward, see if he goes anywhere during that time, Izuku responded. When I quickly forwarded the feed, I said, "Got it." As I continued to fast forward, I said, "Wait, he left," only to notice a cheap cup of noodles in his hand. Izuku joked, "At least we know he's human enough to eat. See if he does anything else aside eat." I said, "On it." He put his food down and remained ruminating on his tower while we kept looking for feeds. Izuku said, "Well, at least we know he's not done there for now." I inquired, "Is there any more news on him?" "No," I replied, "that's weird. No anything on him, at least after the incident with Ingenium." "He's still alive, right?" Izuku inquired. I couldn't help feeling sorry for Tenya, so I said, "Yes, he's just paralyzed from the waist down." Poor Tenya. Immediately following the sports festival as well. Izuku declared, "We'll take him down." I replied, "Yeah, we have to." We kept looking for Stain on camera feeds throughout the day and well into the night. He travels throughout Japan, according to previous articles about him. Kamino Ward was the source of the most recent article prior to the Ingenium incident, which occurred a few days prior to his most recent assault. So from what I've gathered, he doesn't look like he's left, I replied. I have two different guesses why. Izuku responded, 1. He's stalking his next victim. Or 2. He's waiting for something, probably an attack by the League. Then that means your training should be in Hosu, I replied. Izuku put his stack of offers on the table after responding, yes. So that leaves us with who of these offers are in Hosu. I said, let's start cracking. We quickly perused the offers. The agencies that stood out to me in Hosu were Endeavors, Manuel's, Mount Ladies, Death Arms, and even Kamui Woods's. There are many more, but those are the well-known ones. I turned to face Izuku, and he said, I just had a bad thought. You think Iida is going to go after Stain? I asked. My heart wants to say no, but I'm almost certain he will try to look for Stain, I replied. So, we should try to see which agency he's going to, and then we don't pick that. Izuku clarified, that way, we can rush out to save him, and not get ourselves caught when we do patrols. I closed my laptop and said, good idea. We'll ask him tomorrow. For now. Let's go to bed, it's 1 a.m. right now. I yawned. Agreed. We'll continue tomorrow after we get that information. Izuku responded. In order to get some sleep for tomorrow, we nodded and went to bed. When we approached Iida at lunch the following day, he informed us that he was an intern with Manuel and asked why. He seemed to believe my lie when I said, oh, Izuku got an offer from him too. We just wanted a second opinion before he makes his decision. Indeed, well, he's an exceptional hero, and I wish to learn some tricks and tips before stepping out into the field myself. Iida responded. Izuku played along with our charade, saying, I see. We walked to lunch together, and he said, thanks for the heads up. As I was finishing my meal, I remarked, so, we're not picking Manuel. While eating her apple slices, Eri questioned, but why? That man said he's good. Because. It's important that we don't go with him for training, Izuku clarified. Eri questioned, why? Because he needs to work on his skills alone. I can't just give him the answers. Izuku replied with a grin on her face, he needs to figure things out on his own. Eri said, sounding pleased with the response, I see. So, who do you want to intern with? I responded. Izuku uttered the words, Death Arms. I questioned, you sure? Yes. I think I could use some more training with hand-to-hand combat. While he stated prior to looking around. While I have the batons, there will be times where I will be disarmed. I should be able to fight without them, he said quietly. I expressed my thoughts on the decision by saying, I see. Then he will be a good choice. But don't forget the mission. Time to show the world that Night Shot is legitimate. I held out my fist to him, and he tapped it with his. Then the two were joined by a smaller fist. Izuku and I said, go team. Eri immediately said, go team. After a few days, it is now time for field training, also referred to as removing stain time. I met Izuku at the railway station. I slapped him on the shoulder and teased, so, will you be fine with you and Eri all by yourself? I'll be fine. You need your eyes in the sky after all, I stated prior to hugging him. Don't die, okay? I made you some new gear, for your legs. Packed that and everything including your helmet in a capsule, I murmured. Before getting on the train, he waved at the window and said, thanks, and like heck I will. Eri inquired, where is he going? Before we went to the motorcycle, I said, he's going to train, he'll be back in a week or so. Now, let's go home. Midoriya's point of view. I arrived at the office of Death Arm, specifically in Hosu. Before entering, I rapped on the door. Death Arms remarked, ah, you're here. Glad to see you took my offer. Oh, wonderful. No, I must maintain my professionalism. At least competent enough for me to stealthily remove stain at night. I bowed and remarked, I'm honored for the offer, sir. Death Arms pointed to the seat next to the earphone jack girl and said, enough of the honorifics. Now have a seat. I took it. So Turbo. Asking, SNRK Turbo? It's a temporary name. So Midnight would get off my case about it, I said. Anyway, I heard you got second place in the sports festival, beating out many students with powerful quirks, even the one who was the favorite to win it all, Bakugo. He clarified. He laughed as I joked, indeed I did. Though I would have liked to have done that with all of my clothes on, but what are you going to do about that? I hear you, that would have been problematic had the acid seeped further, he laughed. It would have landed me in juvenile hall for indecent exposure. I replied, still. It was pretty difficult, but I'm glad Melissa and I got the top two. Melissa? Inquired Death Arms. As I put on my arm braces, I remarked, oh, she's my partner in crime. Well, partner in heroics is more like it. I would have been toast if she hadn't made me these boots or these. I see. Though I only seen you pull those out in the final match, said Death Arms. Well, I used them twice actually. One you already know, the final match, but the first time I used them was when Iida slammed me onto the ground with his Reciproburst. I activated them last second, which gave me the perfect opportunity to feint not only Iida, but Midnight as well. I clarified, Melissa was dishing out punishment as well. In fact, she came in fourth during the obstacle course. Death Arms and the girl both asked, did she? The girl laughed at my nicknames, so I said, yeah, she could have come in first, but Boom Boom Explodey Pants and Ice Ice Baby would have attacked her. I'm totally using those when I see them next, she replied. Oh, that reminds me, I never got your name, I replied. Right, the name is Kyoka Jiro, and you're Izuku Midoriya, she responded. Yup, that's my name, don't wear it out, I replied. As he made his way onto the field, Death Arms said, well, earphone jack, Turbo, let us begin the field training. Put on your costumes, we're going out on patrol. Both of us replied, yes, sir. Fortunately, I had my fake costume with me. Melissa gave me a walkie-talkie so I could talk to her and a small earpiece so she could talk to me before we left for the station. Outdated but efficient. We put on our costumes and set out on a patrol with Death Arms and his sidekick. Death Arms brought us back to talk after we arrived, which was quite late and almost dusk, but I didn't mind that there wasn't much to it. Death Arms asked, so what would you like to get out of this training? I would like more experience out on the field, sir, Jiro replied. Death Arms said, I see. I assume you're the same way? To an extent, experience is good, but I would like to work on my hand-to-hand combat, I replied. Death Arms questioned, shouldn't you have gone to Gunhead in that case? I would have, but I didn't get an offer from him, I told the truth. Although he's in Musutafu, not Hosu, he was at the top of the list. Thus, he was out right away. I excel at aerial combat as well as mobility, as you may have seen, but my rocket boots only last for 7 minutes until I need to refuel. It's not like an enemy will just sit idly by and let me refuel, they would come attack me at my open state. I have methods to deal with range fighters as well as mid-range. Close range is my weakest at this point in time. I went on. As I nodded, Death Arms asked, so you want to be an all-around fighter? I see. Well, that shouldn't be a problem. I could train both of you. He turned to Jiru and added, I'm sure you'll benefit from this kind of training as well. Jiru replied, yes, sir. Before going to his office, Death Arms said, excellent. Good job today. You may take the rest of the day to rest. Since these trainings are expected to last a week, we may also spend the night here, which is why I have my carry-on suitcase packed with everything I'll need for the trip. I held out my futon and Jiru approached me. According to Jiru, alright, Spill, why are you really here? I said, hand to Ha, before she interrupted. I could tell a lie with my quirk. Now Spill, Jiru replied. Fine. I needed to be in Hosu. That's all I'm saying, I replied. Did you hear about Ida's brother? She asked, taking the hint and nodding. I said plainly, I feel for him, it's all over the news. Before glaring at me, she said, you seem awfully nonchalant about this. A student's brother got paralyzed, dude, that's all you have to say? She asked. At least he's alive. I stated prior to lying on my back on the futon mattress, he has someone to come back to, while his brother is paralyzed from the waist down, and unable to be, ingenium, again. And I truly feel sorry for him, but he has someone to call family, I replied. After connecting the dots, she said, you don't mean. Exactly that, I have no one. No parents, no siblings, no one. I said, I can't believe I'm going to tell you all of this. But I have gone through what I like to call, the worst things any child could go through. It's almost comedic in a way. I said as she stared at me wide-eyed, let's start with terrible event number 1, my father left. I assume it was when my mother was carrying me, considering he wasn't ever there for as long as I could remember. Event number 2, my mother died when she had me. I came out fine, but my mom didn't have such luck. Event number 3, I was put under foster care for all of my life really, and it was complete and utter hell. But alas the coup de grace, event number 4 was when I found out I was quirkless when I was taken to the doctor when I was 4. I explained, so if we count all of those, I would be a bastard, a cursed child, an orphan, and quirkless to boot. I explained as she stared at me like she's seen a ghost. You wonder why I beat the stuffing out of Bakugo during our match. It was because he said the 3 bad words. Call me a bastard, orphan, or a cursed child, and I lose it. I would be sent into an unbridled rage. I learned to control it a bit, but nothing gets under my skin than those words. I added, so the reason I'm so nonchalant about Ida's brother is because while what happened to him and what Ida's going through is horrible, and I would never wish that on anyone, he's lucky his brother is still alive, while I have Melissa and Eri. They're pretty much the only thing keeping me from destroying the world right now. I said before I stood back up from my futon, I'm going to see if Death Arms has any alcohol lying around, or at least orange juice. I stopped in my tracks and Jiru said, wait, she apologized, I'm sorry for getting in your face, during the sports festival and here. He looked at me bewilderedly, and I said, don't. I turned around and said, unless you're going to tell me that you were a direct cause of the 4 worst moments of my life. You don't have to say sorry. Apologies don't mean much if you aren't a direct cause for anything bad. You couldn't have possibly known any of the stuff I told you up until now, so you don't have any fault in it. She arched an eyebrow. Prior to nodding, I went into the kitchen and asked, now, where's that orange juice? It was pleasant and warm when I went outside after I was positive I was out of Jiru's line of sight. I said into the walkie-talkie, you called? Took you long enough. Melissa said through the earpiece, this is important. A purple portal appeared behind Stain. A pale wrinkly dude with hands all over his body, and a mist guy appeared out of it. They had a talk, and Stain walked through it, she clarified. So the league want to recruit him? I responded. Probably, their images fit the descriptions that the students of Class 1A said. News travels fast, which makes our lives a bit easier, Melissa continued. Still, this could be bad. Keep me updated if something happens, I replied. Before she signed off, she said, Roger. With a sigh, I drank some orange juice. In the event that Stain joins the League of Villains. Then, given their resources, this will become 10 times more difficult. Who knows what he might accomplish? We must eliminate him. Quick. Patrols and hand-to-hand combat drills took place over the next few days. Fortunately, patrols take place during the day, and hand-to-hand combat drills take place from dusk until nightfall. Waiting for the signature was all that was left. According to Melissa, I found him. I said over the walkie-talkie, got it. I returned inside and searched my bag for it's there. The capsule with my gear in it. To myself, I'd like to thank Melissa for creating these. Everything was here when I went outside to activate my capsule once more, this time from a great distance. My clothes, grenade belt, vest, batons, and even the new leg armor for my legs. I threw them on over what I was wearing and took off. Speaking into the microphone, I said, "Melissa, where is he?" 1410 Echo Street, an alleyway. "He's attacking Nah. Oh no," said Melissa. I said, "What's wrong?" "It's Iida, he's with the hero killer," she replied. As I flew toward 5th and Main, I yelled, "Shoot, come on, stay alive, please. Say whatever you want to about me, you're still just a criminal who hurt my brother," someone yelled. "Ida." I landed above them on the roof, snatched up my batons, and leapt to the ground. What? Ida and Stain asked as Stain heard him and leapt aside. "To the hero killer," I replied. "I don't think so. I thought you killed heroes, not little kids who are trying to become heroes." "TCH. Don't try to salvage him, Night Shot," Stain responded. "So you know me after all." "I don't know if I should be flattered or scared," I replied. "You take down villains at their most prominent, at night. Even so, when the problem arises you would go out in broad daylight to take down a villain," he said. Before grabbing my batons, I said, "Not the best idea in my opinion. I almost became an Endeavor kebab. Anyway, he's coming with me. I wouldn't want you to rob a kid of his life. He's as far away from being a hero as anyone could get. He's here for some petty mission to kill me for paralyzing his brother. The name, hero, has been dragged through the mud the more heroes that come, and the more the government pays them." He clarified, "They must be purged. To grow a better society. He's a kid. While I won't say he's in the right about doing this, and what he should have done is brought back up, his trainer or something, I won't let you kill him over something like his emotions clouding his judgment," I replied. Stain pointed behind me and asked, "Oh, and what about him?" I looked around and saw, indigenous. As I connected my batons and prepared to fight, I said, "I didn't even see him." I then turned to face Stain and said, "Fine. New mission is to beat you, and save both the kid and native. So you want to fight for them, even though you don't know them?" "Why?" Stain responded. "Because heroes meddle where they aren't supposed to." "I see your point of view, Stain. I don't agree in the slightest, but I see it. I however see things in a different light." I continued, "Mistakes don't make the man makes mistakes. I believe they could learn from their stupid, life-threatening mistakes. Let's see Stain." I held onto my pole. "Let's see who's stronger in their beliefs," I said as I ran toward him. "Let's go, Night Shot," Stain shouted, holding his sword tightly. A loud clang reverberated throughout the alleyway as our weapons collided. His other hand reached back for a knife, and I saw it. I jumped out of the way of his knife slash and knocked him back. As he continued to put pressure on me, Stain remarked, "You are skilled. As to be expected. I expected him to be like those petty thugs, but he's not. But he moves so quickly." I kicked him away with a block and unplugged my pole so we could trade batons. A new form? Interesting. I could easily counter Stain's attacks with a form I'm more familiar with, but he must have realized that. In order to stay within range, he began to switch things up by throwing knives and kicking off the walls. Whispering, I said, "Melissa, come in." No answer. "Melissa, do you copy?" "Ah," I cried as I ducked another knife, but Stain took advantage of my signal and slammed me to the ground. As he withdrew his sword, Stain remarked, "You got distracted. Big mistake." "I'm impressed," he said, piercing my shoulder with his sword and extracting a drop of blood. "I'll spare you." I was paralyzed when he licked the sword. Does he have a quirk? Now, where were we? "No," I screamed, trying to move with all my strength, but was unable to. With his sword drawn once more, he loomed over Ida and muttered, "Goodbye. May your death bring upon a better society." I said, "Why?" Vroom, as the hero killer was struck by a pole and flung back through the alleyway. A motorcycle emerged in the alley. I saw a masked figure on a motorcycle and said, "Huh?" A voice inside my mask said, "Sorry for the wait. Melissa?" I had to ask. "I thought you'd need some backup." The minute I saw Native and Ida on the ground unable to move, I feared the worst and drove here. "Can you move?" Melissa responded. As I watched Stain rise from the overturned trash cans, I clarified, "No. It's his quirk. If he licks a drop of your blood then you become paralyzed and unable to move." She inquired, "Does it have a time limit?" "I don't know. But it has to wear off at some point," I replied. Stain pointed a sword at Melissa and said, "You. Who are you?" he asked. Oracle said, "My name is Oracle. And I am the partner to Night Shot. Stain remarked, Oracle? Never heard of you. While holding her pole, Oracle said, I'm more the technical side of this collaboration. That doesn't mean I can't fight. Oracle whispered to me, I'll stall him as long as I can. The minute you can move, join the fight. Gee, got it, was my reply. With his sword in hand, Stain charged at Oracle. She was engaged in a blocking match. After blocking his sword, Stain went on the attack, repeatedly striking her pole to get some movement towards Iida and Native. After realizing what she was doing and that Oracle was stalling so I could rejoin the battle, she took a few steps back to regain her balance because he was overwhelming her, but Stain stepped past her and hurried over to kill the Iida and Native quickly before escaping the fight. Oracle screamed, No you don't, as she hurled a device at Stain. When he saw that the device was actually bolus meant to trap Stain, he slashed at the cords holding them together, giving Oracle the opportunity to strike back. The bolus were literally towering over Iida and Stain. Hurry up. Get moving. All of a sudden, I could move again, so I stood up and turned on my baton's electric component. No holds barred. I leapt in Stain's direction. He must have heard my baton's zaps because he ducked away from Oracle and avoided my strike. Oracle said, You're back, but what about them? They're still paralyzed. But I was paralyzed last and freed first. I have 3 guesses why, I said as Oracle walked toward me. The more people paralyzed could lessen the time limit, the amount of blood could be a factor, or it could be a person's blood type. I continued. Native said, if it's the last one, my blood type is B. Iida whispered, I'm type A. Stain remarked, so you figured it out. Bravo. Well done. I'm type O. So that's the shortest time limit, at least as far as we know, I replied. Melissa remarked, I'm type A as well. I gripped my batons and said, well, knowing how it works won't get us much, as far as we know it's just us for now. Let's take him down. Quirkless, said Melissa. I concluded, we get the job done. With a knife in one hand and a sword in the other, Stain charged at us. His sword slammed into my batons, and his knife struck Oracle's pole. Oracle, we need a concussion. I responded. She took a concussion grenade from my belt and said, got it. I took off one of my batons and swung at his face while he was preoccupied. He leapt back and dodged. Stain caught it and threw the grenade to the back of the alleyway, far enough away from the blast radius, after she pulled the pin. When he hurried back, Stain yelled, why? Why are you so hell-bent on protecting them? Protecting those fake heroes? He was now only after me. As I slammed his sword back and struck him across the face with my batons, he screamed, they're the exact opposite of what heroes should be. He's becoming frantic and hysterical. He's becoming careless. Because anyone could become a hero, regardless of mistakes, I replied. He snatched his sword out of the air and screamed, damn it, why are you standing in my way? Ha! I exclaimed, swinging my batons as forcefully as I could at the sword. The sword broke into numerous pieces, but Stain picked up one and came running over to me. He jabbed at me and exclaimed, ah! I dodged and struck him in the torso with my batons. Gawk! He exclaimed as he was launched into the air, and I struck him in the face with my batons full force as he fell. Shocks went through his body. After he touched down, he remained motionless. It's been a few seconds since he moved. Melissa remarked, nice shot. I think we beat him. I handed her the rope she had given me and said, I think we did. She nodded. Tie him up, strip him of his weapons, and call the police and whatever news station is nearby. I'll tend to Iida and Native's wounds. I approached Native and Iida. I pulled out some bandages and said, hold still for a second. Iida must have recovered from his paralysis because he sat up and rubbed his injured shoulder. Here, I said. I bandaged him and cleaned his wound. Native came next. I said, sorry for jumping in. As I cleaned his wound and applied bandages, Native muttered, for once. I'm glad you did. Had you not, that kid would have been killed, at such a young age too. As I was wrapping him up, I said, tell me about it. Can you walk? I asked. He got to his feet and said, yes. I asked Iida, what about you kid? And he got up as Oracle pulled the restrained Stain in our direction. Tied him you, night shot. Oracle. I apologize for my mistakes. Iida bowed and said, had I called Manuel, we could have handled this ourselves. I was blinded by hatred, anger, that I couldn't see clearly. I replied, yeah pretty much. Oracle stated, night shot. Had he done all of that, then I wouldn't have needed to fly in, and you wouldn't have had to fly in here to join the fray. Even though that entrance was awesome. Anyway, emotions are emotions, They get riled up and they make you act without rationality. However, one must learn to control their emotions if they want to be a hero, I clarified. The Oracle teased, like you? I'm working on it. Anyway, next time a psycho hero killer shows up and you see him, feel free to call anyone else. There won't be a need to call us because we'll probably be there anyway, I said as the sirens got nearer. As Oracle mounted the motorcycle and I turned on my rocket boots, I said, anyway, you should turn this guy in. As well as get you two to the hospital. I may have cleaned your stab wounds. But I did a terrible job at bandaging them. See you all later. I yelled as I flew up to the room and Oracle rode off to the other end of the alleyway. In order to avoid detection, we were to return to the base. However, I'd like to watch this. While the news media interviewed and filmed Native and Iida, the police captured the hero killer. They were speaking, and I could hear it faintly. The interviewer asked, so, how did you find the hero killer, let alone apprehend him? Stain came after me, he paralyzed me with his quirk. The policeman took out a post-it note and asked, what's this? The cameraman and interviewer glanced at the note. She read out loud, quirkless. We get the job done. Night Shot and Oracle. Melissa. You are a cunning genius. Okay, it appears that our work is done. A deep voice said, excuse me, are you Night Shot? I leapt to my feet and drew my batons, and checked out the person behind me. Shigaraki, the man with the hands that I recognized from the news, was the mist guy. He is also holding Melissa by the throat, the paw of Midoriya. I said, who are you? What do you want? The mist villain said, let me introduce ourselves. My name is Kurogiri, and he is Shigaraki. We are the League of Villains. And we have a proposition for you, Mr. Nightshot. Shigaraki pointed to Melissa and said, see, we have your friend here. They took off her helmet. So if you don't come with us, he said, taking a tiny All Might doll out of his pocket and resting his whole hand on it. That will happen to her, he said, as a portal appeared behind him, causing it to crumble into dust. Now, if you would be so kind, we have much to discuss, said Kurogiri. My hands were trembling. Fine. I muttered as I holstered my weapons and stepped through the portal. I have to comply. That led us to a bar. This would be a pleasant place if it weren't populated by evildoers. I said, so what is this plan? Shigaraki remarked, first, hats off indoors. With his hand around Melissa's neck, it was impossible for me to say no, so I took off my helmet and said, fine. I said, so what's the plan? Kurogiri stated, well, Izuku Midoriya and Melissa Shield. We need a new recruit. A permanent one. At least you clarified that we aren't working forever, I said. Shigaraki muttered, our target. Doesn't, we want him. Yes, you have the heart of a hero. Our target is Katsuki Bakugo. Kurogiri continued, we need him captured and brought here. I said, okay. What's the plan? That's where you come in. Replied Kurogiri, you. Specifically the hero course, is going to their annual summer camp. Due to your attack at USJ, I assume it'll be at some far-off location, far and private, I concluded. Kurogiri clarified, that's why we need you to break into the camp and take Bakugo. Okay. Will I have backup? Because I may have beat Bakugo and some of the best in Class 1A, but 20 vs 1 will be suicide, let alone the staff members that will be there to watch the students. I replied. We will get recruits for the mission. We shall notify you with updates, said Kurogiri. Fine. Now could you do me a solid and open up a portal to our apartment? I replied. Shigaraki tightened his hold around Melissa's neck and said, whatever for? If you plan on run. Melissa needs her tools for some things I need for this to go smoothly, as well as her microphone that is used for us to communicate. I assume you don't plan on sending a massive army like in USJ, but I need some things, I replied. Kurogiri said, I'll allow it, as he made a portal right in my apartment. Melissa, Shigaraki, and I entered the portal. What do you need? Inquired Melissa. Is it possible to make a tiny tracking device? I inquired. According to Melissa, yes. Shigaraki questioned, what do you need a tracking device for? I said, think. You need Bakugo, it will be easier to know where he is at all times. Melissa was gathering her microphone and other items to create a small tracking device. I'll think of some new upgrades when they come to mind. For now let's leave before Eri wakes up, I said quietly. The portal closed behind us, and we walked back through it. I said, so is that it for this meeting? Kurogiri answered, yes. Alright. Then drop me off at Death Arm's agency. He doesn't know I'm here, so I don't want to look suspicious, I replied. As a portal opened, Kurogiri said, "Yes, please give me a moment. I'm so happy that I put my equipment on over my pajamas after taking it off and leaving it there." Before entering the portal and entering the forest behind Death Arm's offices, I said, "Might as well leave it here." I took my phone out. It was midnight, it said. I inhaled deeply before entering. "Cross-armed," Death Arms asked, "and just where were you?" "Just doing some solo training, the old-fashioned punching trees method," I told a lie. He gave me a hard time. Prior to nodding, Death Arms returned to his office after saying, "Okay, well, don't stay out too late." A few days after the incident, rumors about Melissa, Night Shot, Oracle, and our defeat of the hero killer were circulating. The public's opinion of us soared. However, because we were acting in a vigilante manner, the professionals didn't like us. I just know that field training is finished. And she faced a fresh obstacle, Eri. Eri said, "Zuko, you're back." Eri said, "Melissa is gone. Where is she?" She told me that she went to an internship. "Sorry, I didn't know you were all alone," I replied. It's fine, it was just a little lonely," she replied. "I'll soon tell her about Oracle and Night Shot. We must overcome this new obstacle for the time being." The following day, Eri and I were on our way to Principal Nezu's office. First things first. Persuade Nezu and Aizawa to allow me to attend the summer camp. I turned to face Eri once I was in front of the door. I said, "I'll be right back, okay?" She replied, "Yeah, I'll wait here." I took a deep breath, nodded, and turned to face the door. Melissa's point of view looking at the laptop screen, Shigaraki questioned, "What is he doing? Is he ratting us out?" "Calm down, he's most likely asking if he could attend the summer camp with Bakugo's class," replied Kurogiri. Before turning to face me, he said, "Well, I don't like not being able to hear what they are saying." He then gave me an order. "You, hack the cameras, see if we could hear what they are saying." "I don't think that's how cameras work, but I'll try," I replied. I managed to get sound through by hacking the cameras. As soon as Aizawa walked into the office, Nezu said, "So you want to attend Class 1A's summer camp EH?" "Yes sir, any kind of training would benefit my adventure to be a hero," Izuku replied. Kurogiri remarked, "You see, he's just executing the plan like we asked." While continuing to listen, Shigaraki remarked, "You got lucky shield." "Well, if you would like, we could transfer you to Class 1A instead," Nezu responded. I'll think about that, but I would like to attend the summer camp, as a trial run if that's not too much to ask," Izuku replied. Nezu handed Izuku a piece of paper and said, "Not at all. I'm sure the hero course would be glad to have you. Fill out this permission slip and turn it in as soon as possible." Before bowing and leaving the room, Izuku said, "I will, thank you sir." I then closed my laptop and backed out of the camera feeds. Well, as I made my way to my workspace, I remarked, "Time to make that tracking device." It's not difficult to build a tracking device, but it was difficult to build a really tiny one as Izuku specified. In spite of the fact that my neck is on the line, I managed to create a prototype tiny tracker through precise keystrokes and cautious movements. "Alright. Do you have anything I could attach this to?" I inquired. Kurogiri entered the back and gave me an apple, which I then attached the tracking device to. I tried to remove it, but it came off after a few forceful pulls, so I put it back on, but it stuck again. "Alright. It's time to construct the receiver," I said. After building that tiny tracker, it was easy to build the receiver. I finished the receiver quickly, and now it's just a matter of connecting the two. I held the apple to Kurogiri and said, "Let's test it. Make a portal somewhere far in Japan." Kurogiri put the apple on the floor, made a portal in a warehouse, and said, "Understood." I then turned on the receiver after the portal closed. Kurogiri looked at the receiver as I held it out to him and said, "It works." I placed the portal there. Before reopening the portal and grabbing the apple, Kurogiri said, "It does indeed work. Excellent work. No point in losing the tracker." I nodded, took the apple, and said, "We'll give this to Izuku later so he could put it on Bakugo." The tracker came off after some tugging. According to Kurogiri, indeed. Right now, all I could do was assist Izuku in completing this mission. I can't even begin to imagine how Eri is handling this, and the last thing I want is to pass away while Izuku is gradually getting better and emerging from the mental depths. All I could do was hope everything would work out. The POV of Midoriya after completing the permission slip and sending it in, I took Eri to school so she wouldn't be alone. At night when she was sleeping, I would go meet with Kurogiri and Shigaraki to get updates, and they informed me that they had located some recruits. I asked if I could see them, but they said they would introduce me once I arrived at camp. Either way, it works for me. I've had to use the walkie-talkie because Eri has been missing Melissa a lot over the past few weeks, despite my repeated attempts to explain that she is busy. All right, I'll give her a call so you can speak with her. She gave me an excited nod as I asked. I took out the walkie-talkie and said, Kurogiri, could you hand it to Melissa? I inquired. For what purpose? Kurogiri returned the question. Because her younger sister wants to speak with her because she misses her. So, could you please? I begged. Before I heard Melissa's voice, there was silence. Hey, she inquired. Before giving Eri the walkie-talkie, I said, Hey Melissa, Eri wants to talk to you. Hello Melissa. Yeah, I'm fine, Eri said. How is your internship going? I just miss you. I hope you construct lots of interesting things. Before giving me the walkie-talkie back, Eri said, All right, goodbye. She says she's working really hard and misses us, but she'll be back soon. Eri cried out. She is. We'll have apple pie when she returns, and it will be much better than the one at the restaurant, I said. Excitedly, she exclaimed, We will? She inquired. Yeah. The restaurant will pay us to make an apple pie that tastes so good, I said. I am so excited, she cried out. I can't tell her, not just yet. I went to Nezu's office to ask if Eri could come to the camp, and he happily said yes, so I took care of her. Before long, we were on the bus and at the cliff overlooking the forest that surrounded the camp. Finals are over, and I passed. Like there was any doubt. Summer vacation is here. Eri flinched when Aizawa pulled her to his side, but I reassured her that we could trust him. In any case, the wild pussycats showed up and informed us that the camp was far away, that lunch was at 12:30, and that I could already see where this was going. Class 1A hurried to the bus, while I hurried to the cliff. After I leapt and hovered to the bottom, a torrent of dirt threw the rest of the class off, and they fell to the ground one by one. That looks like it hurt, I said, drawing glares. I went to pick Bakugo up by the wrists after he pushed his hands away with an explosion, but the tracker was now on his wrist, and because of Melissa, it appears and feels as though it isn't there at all. Don't have to tell me twice. Mandalay told us over the cliffside that we could use whatever we thought fit. After she finished explaining, I gave this test the finger and turned on my upgraded jet boots, which will save me space for fuel. Now that I think about it, this seems like a terrible idea. Oh well. I flew back up to the cliffside, saying, See you at Camp Eri. Before waving goodbye and heading for the camp. They can handle it the hard way. I have a meeting to attend. A flying dirt monster flew up to try to stop me. I grabbed one of my sticky explosive grenades and dropped it on its head, causing it to explode and fall back onto the forest, turning into a pile of dirt. I put a tracker on the wall as soon as I arrived at the lodging, then I took a stick and drew on the ground, saying, Went to train, be back at lunch Izuku Midoriya. That will buy me 2 hours. I said, Kurogiri, I'm at the lodge, portal me, as I took out my walkie-talkie. When a purple portal appeared and vanished behind me, Kurogiri said, Understood. Tracker is placed, turn on the receiver. I said as the receiver turned on, displaying 2 dots, one of which was slowly approaching the other. All right, I said I was going to train and be back at lunch, which is at 12:30. Where are the others, then? I inquired. A voice said, Right here. I turned to see a group of people. All right. We have Juggernaut, a lizard man, a guy who really needs to see a dentist, a magician, a zombie, a girl who seems to be missing communion for some crazy religion somewhere, a guy who looks 2 years younger than me, black and white Deadpool, and I said, I have nothing for you. You're a kid, too. Who is this? The zombie inquired. Kurogiri replied, This is the one they call Night Shot. You're joking. What are you doing here, a goody two-shoe? The zombie inquired. Then I turned to Kurogiri and said, Here to save my partner from being a pile of dust. Anyway, I'm on the clock if I want this mission to end without getting caught. Indeed, that's why we are appointing you leader of this vanguard, Kurogiri replied. My life is made easier by that. Okay, names and quirks are required, I replied, unless you want to keep my on-the-fly nicknames. I am Twice. No, it isn't. Twice is our quirk. Twice clarified that it could duplicate anything I touched. As his hand began to emit blue flames, Dobby declared, My name is Dobby, and my quirk is cremation. My name is Himiko, and transformation is my quirk. I can change into them depending on how much blood I drink. I want your blood, she said, approaching too closely. All right. Next, I said. The name's Mustard, and poison gas is my quirk, Mustard remarked. I like Juggernaut, but my name is Muscular, and my quirk allows me to expand my muscles, thus increasing my strength. Juggernaut replied. Spinner stated, the name is Spinner, and my quirk is Lizard. A.N. His true quirk is unknown until it is revealed that he has a lizard quirk. It will change once that information is revealed. The name is Mr. Compress, my quirk is Compress, it could compress anything into something as small as a pearl. Mr. Compress clarified. Moonfish. Bladetooth, said Moonfish. Magnetism, magnetism. According to Magna, any human could have a magnetic field, with men being the South Pole and girls being the North Pole. I started to say, okay, let's get started, but Dobby interrupted. What's your quirk, Night Shot? Hold on, Dobby inquired. I replied, nothing. You don't have any quirks? Really? Dobby inquired. As I checked my phone at precisely 10 o'clock, I said, yeah, and that didn't stop me from kicking the butt of the boy we're trying to capture. All right. Let's review the plan since we have 2 hours until lunch, I said. The receiver showed us where Bakugo and the others were, and we all sat around a table with drinks. So Mustard, I'll need you to expel sleeping gas, thin the combined numbers of 1A and 1B down, I said. As Mustard put it, got it. Dobby, light the forest on fire, make the heroes and students jumpy, I replied. Dobby merely gave a nod. You're attacking, Magna, Moonfish, Juggernaut, and Spinner. The pros of 4 backs should be kept. The last thing we want is to kill the person we want to recruit's friends, so fight to subdue rather than kill them, I said. Magna said, understood. Then Spinner said, got it. Juggernaut stated, disappointing, but understandable. Yes. Said Moonfish. Twice make clones of Dobby, confuse the teachers with multiple sightings of the same villain, I replied. Yes, sir. Twice remarked, that's a horrible role. All right. Compress some of the stray students, Mr. Compress, reduce their numbers, and then release them after the mission is completed, I said. Don't we need to bring the compressed students along? Dobby inquired. No, because we have a group of strong students against us if Bakugo rebels. I explained, it's a good idea to reduce their numbers so they won't come after us when we get Bakugo. That leaves the capturing unit. Himiko gave a joyful gasp when I said, Himiko and I. Why are you two? Dobby inquired. In the sports festival, I defeated Bakugo, primarily because of her quirk. It shouldn't be difficult to subdue him, I said, looking at the time, 11:45. I should go back. If you need me, use the walkie-talkie. A gateway a short distance into the forest, Kurogiri? I inquired. Kurogiri responded, understood. When I arrived at the lodge after exiting the portal and rolling around to get dirty, I saw Aizawa, Mandalay, Pixie Bob, Eri, and a child. Hey, what's up? I inquired. How are you simply going to ignore the threat? Pixie Bob inquired. Well, perhaps you shouldn't have instructed us to use any means necessary to get here. I asked. Besides you said lunch was at 12 o'clock, so I booked it, I replied. Mandalay stated, lunch is in 12:30. I shrugged and said, oh. Well, this is awkward. Oh well. I asked, so whose kid is this? Before turning to face the child. No one's, he's my cousin's kid, so I'm looking after him. Mandalay responded, say hi, Koda. I approached him. As I feel that he is intending to kill. I prepared myself and held out my hand, saying, hey, I'm Izuku Midoriya. After examining it, he withdrew to strike the reproductive region. Before he terminated the Midoriya bloodline, I caught it. I said, well, that was rude. With a growl, he withdrew his hand. People like you. Trying to be heroes. Showing off your flashy powers. Well, I'm not one of those people then. I don't have a flashy power, I replied. Wait. You're 100% quirkless. I'm surprised you didn't know that. Mike made that fact heavily apparent in the sports festival, I replied. We haven't watched it. So the quirkless student who won the sports festival was you? Asked Pixie Bob. GHK. No. I got second place. The quirkless student who did win was a friend of mine, I replied. So 2 quirkless students made it to the final event. Eri nodded enthusiastically when I said, wanna see more yo-yo tricks? I finished by saying, those same 2 made it to the final match. Yeah, she cried out. Well, your luggage is in the BU. With a capsule in my hand, I said, no it isn't. It's right here. They regarded me as though I were crazy. Mandalay inquired, did you fall on your head before this point? As I shoved the capsule and threw it behind me, my suitcase was visible through the smoke. No, I asked, it's right there. How? Inquired Pixie Bob. I rummaged through my luggage without replying. As I took out the yo-yo, I exclaimed, aha. Here it is. Okay, watch this, this one's a doozy. Eri wanted to try some of the yo-yo tricks because she was so impressed by them. She struggled to understand the simpler tricks, but she eventually figured them out. Eri just performed the baby cradle, which was incredibly impressive for a 6-year-old. Look, I'm doing it, she exclaimed. You did it, Sniff, I'm so pro, a loud voice exclaimed, finally, as someone collapsed onto their face from exhaustion. Oh, Class 1A is finally here. Want to show them your new trick? I responded. Okay. Eri tapped the child with the yellow hair. He whispered, go away. I put a gentle hand on her shoulder, but she said, sounding defeated, oh, okay. I approached the red-haired child, squatted down, and leaned into his ear, saying, let me show you how it's done. Wake up, dang it, I yelled, causing him to jump up in alarm. He exclaimed, ah, before he realized what had happened. Man, that was messed up. Before shoving my head in his direction, I said, you did tell a kid to go away, so we're even. Go on, show him your awesome trick. After taking a deep breath and performing the baby cradle trick, she said, right. I did it again, demanded Eri. I turned to face the child with the yellow hair and said, I know, awesome. Right. He exclaimed, why yeah, awesome, which caused Eri to smile. Eri exclaimed, show me another Zuku. Since Aizawa, Mandalay, and Pixie Bob wanted everyone's attention, I said, alright, after dinner K? Everyone complained, asking how they were expected to complete this task in just 3 hours. That kid did it just fine, he even destroyed a dirt monster all by himself. Mandalay responded. But he used his boots, and flew over the forest. Ashido shot back, the pink girl I know all too well. Everyone's attention was drawn to me when I said, so, what was stopping Yaoyorozu from making jet boots for everyone as well? I apologize everyone. Yaoyorozu said, her eyes widening before she hung her head in embarrassment. As Eri approached her, I muttered, oh great, now I made her feel bad. Eri said, wanna see my yo-yo trick? Bless her soul, she's trying to lift her spirits. Yaoyorozu looked at me and said, oh, why yes, I would like that. Oh okay, this is. What is it called again, Zuku? Eri responded. I responded, ignoring the snorts and laughter of the others, it's called Baby's Cradle. I respect and take pride in that name. Eri did it flawlessly for the 3rd time in a row, saying, yeah, this is Baby's Cradle. Before making a yo-yo for herself, Yaoyorozu remarked, that was excellent. She obviously struggled with it, but she handled it like a pro. Do you know how to walk the dog? Yaoyorozu asked before showing her, and her eyes widened in amazement and wonder. Eri smiled broadly as she asked, no, how did you do that? She's enjoying herself, and I will sabotage it. All I can do is hope she will pardon me. After dinner, the boys took a bath in the hot spring to calm themselves. Then some great boy thought it would be best to sneak a peek by climbing the freaking wall. I hurried inside to grab my jet boots while he was climbing. After putting them on, I flew up there and pulled my towel as tight as I could. Oi kid! I yelled. He stopped dead in his tracks as I flew above him. Now, Eri is on the other side of this wall. Now we could do this in 2 ways. 1. You could climb back down, so you won't get to see. Or 2. Try to climb up, and get kicked in the face so hard that you will grow a 5th bump on your head. Make your choice. Taking the hint, he descended again. After he descended again, I gradually descended, before giving him a back of the head slap. He shouted, ow, and then gave me a glare. Oh, you have no right to be angry, and if I see you perving on my Eri again, I will shove an incendiary grenade so far up you. Iida shouted, Midoriya, and then made chops in the air. Iida screamed, that is not a way to treat a fellow classmate. I'm in general studies, he's not my classmate at all. I responded, so I can threaten him with shoving flaming explosives up high. Doesn't matter, that's unbecoming of a hero, Iida replied. Fine. I backed off with a sigh. The boys dried off and changed into more comfortable clothes before making their way to their sleeping quarters. They just trudged through a forest full of dirt monsters, so it makes sense that I laid down on my futon while everyone else was sleeping. In another group of the boys, Aizawa and Vlad King were dozing off while discussing training and other topics. So, as I lay on my futon, I was thinking. The doors then slid open. I looked to the door and saw Eri holding a blanket. I don't know the other girls. Can I sleep with you? she said as she approached me. I wanted to refuse and tell her that she should be with other women. However, her eyes were sad. Fine. We can watch a movie, I replied. She yelled, yay. But I hushed her. The others are trying to sleep, I said quietly, so be extra quiet. She returned the whisper, okay. As I made my way to my luggage, I said, good, now let me grab my C-pad. I then took out my walkie-talkie. Before stuffing it into my suitcase and covering it with clothing to act as a muffler, I muttered, no one signal me with this walkie-talkie tonight. Unless you want the mission to fail immediately, cannot be overly cautious. Eri and I watched The Lion King together. It's a timeless film that will undoubtedly put her to sleep. Eri started asking a question that I wasn't prepared to respond to while we were watching this. Eri said, Zuko. What's a dad? A jolt straight through the heart. A dad is someone who will take care of you. Someone who will be with you while you grow and lead you to a good life, I replied. She kept watching the film, seemingly satisfied with that response. Then, while Scar was singing, she crashed. I put the C-pad to sleep and told her to lie down in a position that wouldn't hurt her back. After that, we went to bed. Snap! I woke up and frantically asked, who did that? Who's there? Before noticing a red-haired child with a phone in front of my face. Eri asked, obviously startled awake, then instantly went back to sleep. Phew. All right, explain yourself before the fist go flying, I replied. Before he showed me the photo, he said, sorry, just wanted a picture. He was trembling because he thought I would be angry. I said, can you send that to me? Huh? He inquired. Can you send that to me? I said, extending my phone outside. After a moment of bewilderment, he grabbed my phone and sent me the photo. Before stretching, I checked my phone and said, thanks. 5 a.m. it is, I believe, morning time for us. I went to my luggage, took out a packet of post-it notes, and wrote Eri a note that read, training, decided to let you sleep, come out when you want to Zuko. Along with a postscript that read, P.S. Don't finish the movie without me. I put the note on the C-pad. Alright, let's go. The kid with the red hair. We went outside to begin the training after he identified himself as Kirishima, which caused my eyes to pop open in surprise. While others received quirk training, I has a unique variation. Mr. Aizawa stated, Izuku Midoriya, weapons training. As I approached the 3 weapons on the table, a staff, 2 smaller staves for dueling, which is my forte, and a bow, I exclaimed, oh ho ho. I'm excited. I said, long range could do me wonders. As I picked up the bow. Alright. As for the rest of you. As I experimented with the bow to get a sense of the placement, Mr. Aizawa went over each person's quirk training exercises. I felt a tug on my pant leg as soon as I figured it out. I saw Eri when I looked down. I snatched up a blunt arrow and said, what is it, Eri? Eri said, what can I do? I questioned, do you have a quirk? As she winced. As she looked down, she muttered, why yes, but it's evil. No, that's not gonna fly here. I replied as I lowered myself. A big muscular guy once told me that quirks are never evil, it's how they could be used as evil. What is your quirk? I inquired. It could rewind a person. It could rewind them to before they were born, she sighed. She must have thought of that scum of a person, overhaul. Well, then learn to control it, that way you can rewind a person just enough to save them from being hurt. I replied. That way it won't be an evil quirk, but a super mega ultra awesome quirk, I replied. She repeated, a super mega ultra awesome quirk? I looked around and said, yo Aizawa. When the exhausted and worn out man approached us. Exactly, you can save millions of people Eri, but you have to train it. He said, what is it? Can you help Eri train her quirk? I responded. Aizawa asked, what is the quirk? And he arched an eyebrow at me. She exclaimed, it's called rewind. It was rewind people, and I want it to be a super mega ultra awesome quirk. What she means by rewinding people, is that she could rewind a person to a previous state, but she doesn't know how to control it from being with he who shall never be named, I clarified. So, please, I inquired. Looking down at Eri, Aizawa remarked, I'll see what I can do. As I drew back the arrow I had grabbed and pointed at the target, I waved, bye Eri. It was Eri who said, bye dad, whoosh thunk FWIP, ow. My arrow struck someone in the head after sailing past its intended target. The sounds of people using their quirks abruptly stopped, and I felt the entire place fall silent. SSSS she. She just called you dad, Kaminari, who had yellow hair, exclaimed. I heard that, I exclaimed. Ashido exclaimed, that's so cute, when a pair of floating gloves began to do the same. I chose to ignore everyone and carried on with my archery drills. Thankfully, they eventually left me alone. Dinner finally arrived after many hours of quirk training, and we were given the responsibility of preparing our own food. When I went outside to gather firewood, I came up with a rather unconventional way to start my fire. I pulled out an incendia and placed a bunch of firewood far from the other cooking areas. When Yayorozu realized what I was going to do, he yelled, "Midoriya, I'll light your fire for you." To help me light my fire, she made a lighter. But my method would have been way more fun. I whimpered as I resumed preparing curry, fortunately, during my years at the dreadful orphanage. When Melissa's and My Hero Agency starts to take off, I swear I'm going to start my own orphanage. Like the devil, we'll serve bad food. In any case, I didn't have much less good, food back at the orphanage. So I sneaked into the kitchen and prepared some food for myself. After much trial and error, I finally figured out what Kaminari was doing to my pot. "Just what do you think you were adding to the curry?" I asked, holding another knife, as I snatched the one I was using to chop vegetables and threw it in his direction, landing it on the support beam but drawing attention from everyone. Kaminari said, "Adding some spice." I growled as he retreated, saying, "Eri hates spicy food, back off." I heard Jiru say, "Geez, remind me never to piss off Papa Midoriya." As I added some chopped sweet potatoes to the curry, I remarked, "Dang straight. Everyone else has already begun eating after finishing their curry. In contrast, I am a perfectionist." Eri whimpered, "Is it ready yet, Zuko? I'm hungry." I took out the spoon and tasted it, then smiled and gave her a quick kiss on the nose, saying, "You can eat." "Excellence." As I offered her a bowl of rice and curry, I said, "Or you can eat right. All it'll cost you is a little patience." I removed the curry from the fire, served myself some, and sat down at the table with Eri after she took the bowl and the others. The man with the tape arms said, "Man Midoriya, you took your sweet time," Zero said. I chose to let Eri do the talking. She bit into it, prior to quickly devouring it. "Calm down, Eri. It's not going anywhere," I replied. She said, But it's super mega ultra awesome." As I ate some of my curry, I chuckled and said, "You learn a lot under certain circumstances. You can eat, or you can eat right. All it'll cost you is a little patience." I watched Yayorozu eat some of my curry herself after digging her spoon into it. She smiled and said, Eri and the others around me exchanged glances before turning to face me. "Before you even think what I think you are doing," I said, then turned to Eri and asked, "1 second?" Before turning to face the trail, I noticed Koda on her way to the mountain. "Want to see if Koda wants some?" I asked. As she plated some curry and started to move in the direction of the path Koda was using, Eri replied, "Yeah. I ought to go with her." "No, I'm not exactly liked by Koda. Not at all. I'll let Eri take care of this." As soon as Eri stepped into the boys' sleeping quarters, the lights went out and she fell asleep like a log. I left the sleeping area as soon as I was positive that everyone was either asleep or out of earshot. As she fell from the tree, I looked around after I had moved a short distance from the lodge and remarked, "I know you're there, Himiko." As she approached to close, she said, "Ah, how did you find me?" she asked, flashing her rather sharp canine teeth in a grin. "So what are you doing out here so late?" She sat beside me as I sat on a log that was resting on the ground and said, "I came out here to clear my head." With a grin that kept getting bigger, she asked, "Why are you thinking about me? Don't you think about how different your life would be if things went differently?" I asked, gazing up at the starry sky. "No, but good try though." Himiko replied, "Well, yes. Had I not chosen to wear this outfit, I might have scared you away." I sighed deeply and said, "I'm serious. Like had I not become Nightshot, I might have never met Melissa, I might have never gone to UA. All the time." Himiko said with a serious look on her face. "I always think those thoughts. Every day. Had I have not been born with this quirk, I might have been loved by my parents. Had they not have told me that my quirk is an evil quirk or a villain's quirk, I might have not killed them." She continued. "Had all of that not happened, then I would probably be here right now for a different reason," she replied. She gave me a startled look, and I responded, "I relate to that." "You killed your parents? I like you more." "No, I didn't." "Well, not intentionally anyway," I replied. "It's unbelievable that I'm going to share my life story with a villain." However, perhaps she would comprehend. My father was never there. I assume he left because my mother was pregnant with me. As I was born, while I was healthy, my mother died when she had me. To top it all off, I was quirkless. Bastard, orphan, cursed child, quirkless. I went on. The only thing that kept me from jumping off my school roof was the idea of being a hero. I want to make people feel happy and feel better with me protecting them. Of course, Light decided to take that away too, by having a pro tell me I couldn't be a hero. I continued, but Himiko didn't answer. So I decided, after reading some Batman comics, I decided to throw all caution to the wind and become Nightshot, the vigilante. I continued, so let me ask you something. What's stopping you from becoming a hero? I inquired. She smiled again and said, because I'm a villain. She glared at me as I asked, is that a serious answer, or? Himiko said, look, as her expression darkened, I know what you're trying to do, but I can't. I'm a murderer, and even if I wanted to, I'm sure the other pros wouldn't accept me. I said, but do you want to? She appears conflicted and did not respond. There's an old saying. Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift, that's why they call it the present. I responded, if you want to stay a villain, by all means, but keep in mind, if you want to be a hero. Melissa and I could use a third member. I said before getting up and leaving. Is it possible that my words affected her? I'm not sure. Do I believe the information she gave me about her parents was accurate? I have no idea either. Was I telling the truth when I made my offer? Yes. Melissa and I believe, demonstrated that anyone can be a hero. All they require is a slight push. The paw of Midoriya. This is it. The day of the assault. I was informed that the remaining members of the Vanguard had arrived and were awaiting approval. I assured them that when the time came, I would call it in. Himiko and I are currently standing atop a mountain. She wasn't as thrilled as she would have been, but I chose to bite the bullet and told her to use my blood as a disguise. Perhaps what I said has affected her. Okay. The answer to that question will come with time. After she finished a cup, she drank it all and changed into me. During the training session, she replaced me and was instructed to practice archery and pick up the bow. When dinner time arrived, I took over and prepared Aries' meal. Curry again, not that I. And literally everyone who gathered around my curry pot had the same thought. Buzzards. In any case, we literally had to construct fire pits all around me after preparing a large quantity of curry for everyone in order for me to prepare curry for everyone. It was time for the scare competition, also called the time to attack, and I think Lunch Rush will face some competition later. As I put on my Nightshot suit and gear, Himiko took my disguise and I slipped away using the old-fashioned bathroom excuse. After that, I moved aside to check on Bakugo on the receiver. He and Todoroki had attempted to cross the treacherous path. Alright. I have visual on Bakugo. Remember, no killing, subduing. Bakugo will not agree to join if we kill some of his friends, got it? I inquired. Everyone heard the voice of agreement. I placed the walkie-talkie in my pouch and said, okay, go ahead Dobby and Mustard. I saw the purple sleeping gas and smoke. Showtime has arrived. While the others were trapped in the gas, escaping the fire, or escaping Spinner, Muscular, Juggernaut, Moonfish, and Magna, I stayed in the shadows. Except for Bakugo and Todoroki, who were fending off Moonfish. It's time for me to make my grand entrance. I charged Bakugo and entered the battle. Bakugo and Todoroki both said, Nightshot? As I took out my batons and began attacking Bakugo, I uttered the words, Moonfish, keep Todoroki occupied. No you don't, Todoroki said, directing a wave of ice in his direction, until his body turned into a tiny pearl and glowed a brilliant teal. Bakugo said, what the F, before carrying out the same action. When I lifted the pearl off the ground, Bakugo was there, seemingly unconscious. Before taking off my helmet and grabbing the walkie-talkie, I said, thanks for looking out Mr. Compress. Bakugo has been captured, return to the evac point. Moonfish, Mr. Compress, and I made our way to the evacuation point. This went much more quickly than I had anticipated. Well, it speeds up the process of returning her to Eri. Magna and Spinner arrived last, which was to be expected given that they were actively battling the wild pussycats, so I changed the channel on my walkie-talkie once we got there. Everyone nodded, so I said, everyone here? Okay, Kurogiri. Take us back. Kurogiri then appeared. With portals in front of each person, Kurogiri said, as you wish. I held Bakugo's pearl in my hand and said, Mr. Compress, free everyone. As Bakugo's pearl changed into Bakugo himself, he said, yes sir. I tightened my hold around his neck as I passed through the portal. When we got to the bar, or trading point, he said, Deku. Melissa was in Shigaraki's grasp when he said, good work. Now, give me Bakugo. He held out his other hand. You sold me out? Exclaimed Bakugo. As I glanced around the room, I said, quiet, and hold on for a second. I want to do the trade with Kurogiri. You don't trust me? Requested Shigaraki. No, not at all. Especially since you can kill her with one more finger. I replied, just a precaution. Shigaraki handed Melissa to Kurogiri and said, fine. He knew he would still get Bakugo. He brought Melissa to me, and I regained Melissa after Kurogiri grabbed Bakugo in a smooth trade. Kurogiri remarked, a pleasure doing business with you, Mr. Nightshot. Deku, you bastard! Exclaimed Bakugo. Before removing Melissa from the wall, I pushed the talk button on the walkie-talkie and said, no, it's been a pleasure doing business with you. Detroit Smash! All Might exclaimed, bursting grandiosely through the wall. Kurogiri, Mustard, and Dabi were knocked out when an elderly man leapt past him after he had punched a hole in the wall. Then Kamui Woods' quirk captivated everyone. It's unbelievable that it worked. Rewind, I said. You saw what? I saw everything. Sir Night Eye continued. It's my quirk. If I make eye contact with someone, I could see their future. It only works once a day, so I saved it for our meeting. He clarified, but that doesn't matter. You're Nightshot. What he said made me wince. I inquired, how far did you see? Far enough to know you're going to take on the hero killer, Stain, as well as something else, he continued. I said, what is it? After you take on Stain and beat him with another. A girl, the League of Villains will appear holding her hostage, he clarified. Concerned for Melissa's safety, I exclaimed, how'd I get her back, without hesitation. He sounded upset at the thought, saying, we should get All Might in this meeting. I have no right to step in. In addition, I am currently dealing with more pressing issues. Flashback, and I said, you alright? She joked, mentally scarred, but fine. Shigaraki questioned, how? How did you see so far ahead? I clarified, I have my methods. Melissa questioned, wait, you planned this whole thing? Before turning to face Bakugo, I said, I couldn't tell you. I needed this to be as convincing as possible. Same with you. The villains would have realized something was wrong if you didn't fight for your life. I explained, discreetly passing her the backup collapsible pole she had made in case she broke it. After taking it, she placed it in her back pocket. You little, Kamui Woods looked at me and said, so this is Nightshot. Not what I expected. But it's still impressive how a kid managed to best the hero killer. Let alone a quirkless kid, he thought. I'll disregard the last sentence. That's only a third right, anyway. I said, Oracle over here saved my skin and their skin fighting off Stain while his quirk slowly wore off. I nearly failed at saving the kid and native. I see. Kamui Woods remarked, I wish I had sent you 2 training offers. You did. You simply weren't in Hosu, I continued. While we were speaking, Moonfish opened his mouth to shoot blades, and Muscular used his muscles to break free from Kamui Woods' attack, but a red string pierced both of them, rendering them unconscious. It was Edgeshot, Pro Hero number 3. All right. Tell me, young Midoriya, why did you choose this course of action? All Might inquired. I don't need to tell my origin story now. However, I explained with All Might wriggling uneasily, I don't hold that person's statement against them. I am quirkless, and someone told me that the job of a pro hero isn't made for quirkless people. This is essentially teenage rebellion at its best. I now understand that they said that to keep me safe. However, I don't exactly have a reputation for common sense. Watch this, I said to that thought. As my good deed of the month, I trained by diligently cleaning up Dagoba Beach, which had previously been converted into a dump. I clarified, one thing led to another, and now I'm here. All Might said, I see. We left those post-it notes on the criminals and thieves we apprehended for a reason. Quirkless, we finished the job. I turned to All Might and said, does that answer suffice? It's our mantra, as well as a wake-up call to those who don't have a quirk, saying you can be a hero if you really want to be, I inquired. According to All Might, why yes it does. Bakugo growled at me when I slapped him on the back of the head and said, there's also a petty reason, like how there are some pretentious jerks who think that since they have quirks they're better than all of us. It was worthwhile to demonstrate to them that quirkless completes tasks. I regret setting up my agency in Hosu, Kamui Woods said. If it will make you feel better, I'll go to your training next year, I replied. Yeah. Before I interrupted him, All Might remarked, now, It's time to take these bad guys away. All Might paused his statement when I said, just a second. I then approached Himiko and said, the offer still stands. You know that you can still become a hero. Oh. Just. Close. Get up. Shigaraki screamed as brain things began to emerge from the gray substance and silver goop began to form around him. Nomu. As more gray goop covered everyone, all the villains, Bakugo, Melissa, All Might screamed. Izuku. I turned to grab Melissa, but she vanished as I yelled at her. No. All Might shouted. They're gone, gone, gone. Hold on, there's that tracker. I took it out and switched it on, and there they are, at Kamino Ward. All power. As he knocked the Nomus away, I screamed. Is that Midoriya? All Might inquired. I am aware of their location, I shouted while extending the tracker. Follow me, we have to save them. Melissa's point of view. Splash. Where am I? Cough cough 1. Bakugo was behind me, and the other villains were coughing in front of me when I asked, looking around wildly. When I looked around, I saw heaps of debris, other professional heroes lying unconscious and injured, Best Jeanist lying on the ground with severe injuries, and a man who appeared menacing. Shigaraki glanced at the man and said, S-sensei. So, Tamura, you failed once more. As he approached Shigaraki, the man said, but don't give up. Try again. I have also brought your associates back, he said, including these kids. Do it as many times as you need to, he continued, holding out his hand, because you judged that they were an important piece. I'm here for that reason. It's all for you. I am completely appalled by the man's pure aura, but I must remain strong. I made a concerted effort to retrieve the extendable pole from my back pocket, prepared to face resistance, at least until Izuku arrived. Now. Izuku is going in this direction. Get the man said, before turning to face the sky. Bakugo and I turned to see where he was looking. Midoriya's point of view, I flew down towards the man in the suit, thinking that if what All Might told me is true, he should be the first target to attack. I see them, down in the crater, and I'm not too late. As I descended toward him, I engaged my braces and struck him with my right arm, saying, Night shot. Izuku Midoriya, no All Might, where are you? The man inquired. I took out a sticky concussion grenade and applied it to his arm, saying, you should worry about who is in front of you first, rather than him. I shouted before taking off. He was taken aback by the blast, but if he is the main villain behind the league, it won't last long. All Might now. As he drove a hole through a collapsed building, I screamed. I flew in front of him as he sped toward me from behind. Heroes. All Might screamed as I struck him in the face and he struck him in the back. We complete the task. We both screamed, which temporarily stunned him. You deal with this individual. He nodded, and I said, I'll give Bakugo and Melissa backup. Leave. As I flew to them and drew my batons, All Might yelled. Bakugo. I shouted. As the rest of the vanguard, excluding Mustard, Dabi, and Kurogiri, withdrew their weapons, he snarled and then detonated miniature explosions in his hands. I know, he said. With a combination of quirks, All for One has blown away All Might, and the battle for our survival has begun. It could be anything. Bakugo shouted. He'll be all right. I shouted as All for One pierced the unconscious Kurogiri, forcing him to open a portal to an unknown location. All Might then leapt from the place where he was launched and launched himself back into the battle. Tamura, never stop thinking. You have a lot more space to develop yet. As he rose into the air to engage All Might in combat, All for One yelled. Fists clashed between All Might and All for One. As Mr. Compress encased Kurogiri, Dabi, Muscular, and Mustard in pearls, the other members of the vanguard displayed their weapons and appeared prepared to strike, though Himiko appeared hesitant. Himiko. I yelled as I blocked Spinner's sword, come on. This is not required of you. As I escaped Mr. Compress's grasp, I shouted, you can still be a hero. Stop talking like such an idiot. As he continued to swing at me with his palm open, Shigaraki yelled. I could only dodge. If I struck his hands with my batons, he would shatter them. She completely stopped attacking, but I continued to dodge. She is a villain, and she will always remain that way. He yelled as he kicked my legs, staggering me before pushing his hand towards my face. Now die. Shame Swish Shigaraki was too stunned to scream in pain as a knife flew into his hand, causing blood to spill from the wound, and I collapsed to the ground, witnessing something I didn't anticipate happening. Himiko said, I know what I want, as the other members of the vanguard watched her approach us. She took out 2 knives and said, I want to join Nightshot and Oracle. Wow, girl. As I took out the other baton, I shouted, it's 4v4 now. With a single motion, they skillfully reversed the tides. Mr. Compress reached into his pocket and released Kurogiri, who was still unconscious, saying, they got us. All for One then used his forced quirk activation on Mr. Compress, saying, take Kurogiri and go. Sensei. Shigaraki did not move when All for One said, go, if you get captured here, then the League of Villains will be no more. With a single hand push, he pushed Kurogiri and Shigaraki into the portal as it closed behind them. So be it, he said, using another quirk to lift them both towards the portal. Hurry. While they're preoccupied, we weren't flying as fast because of their weight and mine, so the villains tried to hit me out of the sky before I could escape with Himiko and Melissa. I yelled as I grabbed both Himiko and Melissa and turned on my jet boots. Mr. Compress sailed towards us to get us out, but a blue-haired girl knocked him aside first. Magna brought Spinner and Mr. Compress to her so she could launch them towards us. I don't believe so, she shouted. Wait, Hato? As she turned to nod at me, I asked, in the flesh. Magna, unfazed, drew Spinner close for another launch, but Ryukyu intervened and stopped them before they could complete their maneuver, and we landed back on the ground, where Tagata and Imajiki seemed to inquire about our well-being, at which point All Might was struck by more buildings. Imajiki, please remove Melissa and Himiko from here, I inquired. All right. Why? Did he ask? As I took off my helmet, I said, Tagata. Everyone gave me a startled look. We have to help All Might. Are you crazy? He's not like the hero killer, Melissa inquired. He has a long way to go. I am aware. I said, but we have to help All Might. He's being beaten out there, and he's holding back because there are still people trapped in the buildings. Then, Tagata and I need to support him and help him defeat All for One. But why me? He flinched when I said, I know about it, don't be coy with me. I learned it from Sir Night Eye, so I know what you can do. So you can either shake in your boots and let All Might take the beating. Or help me fight by putting on your adult clothes. I said, I'm going either way. So I would be grateful for some support. Before Tagata made his choice, there was another boom and a shockwave. I'll help you. Mirio. I must assist All Might. How can I save 1,000,000 lives if I can't save just one? He asked, then nodded into my direction. All right. I said, now, Hado, I have a question for you. What is that? She inquired. Tell Ryukyu to look for civilians in the wreckage, I said as I handed her my helmet. This has an X-ray function on it, it'll help you locate some civilians. Rescue as many as you can and ease the burden off of All Might. I replied. Before Hado grabbed the helmet and hurried to Ryukyu, she said, all right. Imajiki then carried Melissa and Himiko away from here. I asked Tagata, are you ready? I inquired. He gave a nod. As ready as I'll ever be. Melissa's point of view. In Kamino Ward, Imajiki landed Himiko and me in front of a huge screen that was broadcasting the fight between All Might and that man. They exchanged blows before splitting up when a mini explosion exploded at the man's feet. Tagata and Izuku joined the fight and, for the first time, revealed Night Shot's face to the world. Instead of playing the audio of the battle, the news broadcast was just playing the video in the announcer's voice. I must be able to hear what they are saying. After taking a capsule out of my back pocket and turning it on, I saw my laptop from when I was captured by the League. I opened it and turned on the cameras, hoping that one of them would still function despite all the damage, but there was one. It was quite near the battle, so I turned the volume up to full and put the audio feed on the news feed. No one's point of view. Dialogue of All Might. Izuku's dialogue, and Mirio's dialogue. In addition, I would never dictate the music to be played during a chapter. You are free to choose whatever you like. However, if you would like my suggestion, I believe this is a you say run moment. Is Lemillion ready? Yes, let's take this villain down, Night Shot. Night Shot. The crowd watching the feed and hearing the audio asked, isn't that Midoriya? Watching the news from her hospital bed, Yayorozu posed the question. The guy without a quirk? Ashido viewed it from her hospital bed as well and inquired. Night Shot is 10 million. Hatsume inquired. Todoroki sat in the hospital common room and said, so the one who captured Bakugo. Was he there the entire time? That young man. From the sports festival. Iida whispered to himself, he saved me from the hero killer. What do the two of you do? I'm fighting this. Yeah, a fight you are losing. So we're here to help you beat him, while Ryukyu and the other pros help with the rescue operation. However, this is illegal. As Night Shot, I've been breaking the law for the past month, and his license is with him. Alright. I will accept your help. You pretend that if you had said no, we would have gone. Let's go home and get rid of this scumbag. 3 against 1. That's hardly fair, All For One said as he expanded his muscles with a wide variety of quirks, while also terraforming the ground to whatever he sees fit. Fine then. Heroes, come at me, he said. With pleasure. Izuku, Lemillion, and All Might started to rush in the direction of All For One, while All For One was trying to stall them by morphing the ground in various ways, such as by making dirt pillars to crush them, pitting the ground, or building a straight-up dirt wall between them. All 3 of them started to dodge in different directions. Lemillion, using his quirks of permeation and his quirk that All Might himself had passed down to him, One for All, phased through the dirt pillars and walls and proceeded with his rush. All Might took a more direct approach, smashing the pillars that came his way and dodging them with his great speed. Izuku, on the other hand, was strictly dodging with his jet boots and running on the pillars to get closer. How obnoxious! Endeavor had returned from fighting the Nomus, and Edge Shot had started stalling the villains so that Izuku, Lemillion, and All Might could approach. All For One said as he was about to blow them away with his wind quirk, but was stopped by a blast of flames. Enough! Lemillion jumped onto All Might's pillar while he was preoccupied, and Izuku followed closely behind with his boots, charging towards the villain. All For One yelled before blowing them away with both hands. Lemillion and All Might jumped into the air as soon as the pillar reached its end, and Izuku flew with them as they all drew back for a punch. To get through the crisis you're facing, and putting your all into it. Quirk or no quirk, and rescue others, at any price. That is what distinguishes a person, a superhero. Enough of this sentimental platitude. Using a combination of spring-like limbs, kinetic booster times 4, strength enhancer times 3, multiplier, hypertrophy, rivets, airwalk, and spear-like bones, All For One shouted as his arm grew to astronomical proportions. I shall extinguish the symbol of peace with my ultimate combination of quirks, he shouted as he hurried over to us and drew his fist back for another blow. His right arm's unexpected growth startled the audience, but they continued to applaud. Izuku, get him, Himiko and Melissa shouted. Mirio, beat him, Hado and Imajiki applauded. It could be anything. The audience let out a roar. Good luck. Iida gave a cheer. 10 million, Hatsume shouted. Throw him away. The whole of Japan applauded, the triple destruct. As the 3 heroes and All For One engaged in a fierce tug of war, their punches collided. Lemillion, All Might, get down. As Izuku took the brunt of the blow but reached back for his final incendiary grenade, they winced but followed orders. What a gutsy boy. As he pulled back for a punch, All For One yelled, performing the same set of quirks on his left arm, but it's game over. Yes. Before deactivating his jet boots and hurling the sticky incendiary grenade at All For One's face, Izuku declared, game over for you. All For One fell as a result of the punch and the explosion. Oh, they shouted, All For One. Right now, we will show you what it means to. Izuku shouted as he turned on his jet boots again, and Lemillion and All Might leapt up to join him in the last blow. Go. Beyond. Plus. Ultra. After striking the stunned All For One with a combined blow, they used their combined strength to send him flying to the ground, creating a huge tornado of dust, debris, and actual buildings. When the tornado had passed, All For One was seen lying face down on the ground, motionless. Hey. Haha. Lemillion threw himself to the ground and grabbed Izuku before he hit the ground. Izuku said before crashing to the ground in exhaustion. The crowd fell silent, until the newscaster who was filming the entire event began to cry. That's when Izuku noticed that All Might's muscular form had vanished, exposing his natural form to the public. The crowd, along with everyone watching at home, was cheering at the villain's downfall and the hero's triumph. It didn't matter if he wasn't the muscular form that everyone was familiar with and loved, he saved them. Lemillion carried Izuku back to Hado and Imajiki's location, leaving the rescue to the professionals while they went to safety. When they finally met up, Melissa and Himiko surrounded Izuku, yelling at him for being so foolish as to rush headlong into the danger before Melissa pulled him into an embrace. Izuku was taken aback by the suddenness of her lips meeting his, but he eventually eased into it. After they parted, Izuku noticed Himiko's dejected expression. Will you simply stand there, or will you come give us a hug? Izuku inquired. Himiko gave them a startled look before running to give them a joyful hug. She has never been happier because she has finally found someone who doesn't want her for who she is and who thinks she can be a hero. She will never take that for granted. However, every happy moment must end. Himiko Toga, Melissa Shield, and Izuku Midoriya. Please join us, said Naomasa Tsukachi, the chief detective. They were soon driven to UA, where Principal Nezu's office was occupied by Aizawa, Vlad King, and all of the staff. Himiko Toga, Oracle, and Night Shot, welcome. We have a lot to talk about. The POV of Midoriya. Let us start with, where is Eri? Concerned that she wasn't present, I inquired. She is fine. She was worried as to where you were, but after watching the fight, she was relieved that you were alright, Aizawa replied. I let out a sigh of comfort. Returning to the subject at hand. Principal Nezu declared, you two have committed serious crimes. Vigilantism is a serious crime that is condemned in our law books. In addition to harboring a villain. Look, I understand the first part, but she doesn't want to be a villain anymore. She fought with us while protecting Bakugo, I clarified. Be that as it may, she's still a villain, and thus there are consequences to harboring one. Nezu continued. What if she is a villain? Haven't any of you learned anything from all this? I said, raising my voice. As I calmed down, Aizawa said, let him finish Midoriya. Yes, everything I said is accurate, but even though what you did as Night Shot was against the law, it saved many lives and helped bring a villain closer to the truth. We are appreciative of that, Nezu said, bowing. However, there's always a but, so I asked. However, all three of you will be closely monitored. In particular, Himiko Toga, Nezu clarified. By allowing you three to attend UA, we are taking a significant risk. We do think all three of you have the potential to be heroes, Aizawa remarked. Your efforts as Night Shot did teach us something. Before turning to face Melissa and me, Midnight explained, but because of what you've done in the past, we have a zero-tolerance policy. If you step out of line once, and you're out of here. Himiko Toga, if I see you draw blood outside of practicals, as well as with the use of knives, and you're out. No more acts of vigilantism. The vigilantes will no longer be present starting tonight, she declared, then grinned, but Night Shot and Oracle. Today marks the beginning of quirkless pro heroes. Are you serious? I asked in astonishment and excitement. You two have more than demonstrated your ability to become pro heroes, but Himiko hasn't shown us that yet, Vlad King remarked. She said, I won't let you down. She de-equips herself, dropping her knives and blood suction device to the ground, indicating that she is starting over. I'll keep a close eye on her, I replied. All right. Now go ahead and speak with Eri. My face heated up as Midnight teased, she misses her dad. Dad? Melissa inquired. It's a long story. Eri was crying as she jumped up to embrace Melissa and me as soon as we opened the door to her place, which was directly next door to Nezu's office. I sobbing into our legs, she said, I was so scared. I am aware. I said, we apologize, Melissa and I got sucked into something we shouldn't have. But now that we're here, and we promise never to abandon you again, Melissa remarked, stepping back from our legs. Why, you mean it? Her eyes were still wet when she asked. Promise. I said, echoing Melissa's pledge. She wiped away the tears from her eyes and said, oh okay. Oh, and Himiko Toga is here. Himiko waved shyly as I said, she's our new partner. Eri gave her a quick glance before approaching and saying, hi. She returned the greeting, hi. Eri was apprehensive about her, but she has grown closer over time. In any case, we brought Himiko to our apartment late, and since we only had one room, I offered to sleep in the living room. This brings up the fact that I need to discuss the kiss with Melissa. Melissa and I were left alone when we got home because Himiko and Eri went to bed right away, even though it was well past their bedtime and she had only stayed up so late to check on us. Hello, Melissa. Regarding that key, she merely stated, I like you. I'm sorry. I inquired. I like you. She acknowledged. I was hoping to say it during our celebration, but one thing led to another, and I couldn't find the proper time to say it. I simply didn't know when was the appropriate time to say it. After that, Stain lost, I was taken prisoner, and finally he was beaten. I simply did it, she said. I blushed and said, oh. I never really recovered from my anxiety around girls. Well, I said, I like you too. Why, you mean it? She inquired. She blushed just as red when I said, why yeah, and the kiss was nice. The room was quiet and the atmosphere was tense. So what now? Melissa inquired. I'm not sure. How even do we approach this? We are Oracle and Night Shot. Our goal is to become pro heroes. Will we have time to date at all? What if I said before Melissa took my hand, what if I ruin everything? I'm anxious about this as well. But we'll work it out, together, she said, kissing me on the nose. Why yeah, I said, trying to smile, together. Please stop being so sweet, it's making me sick with diabetes. Before shutting the door behind her, Himiko shouted. As I hurried into the storage closet and retrieved a blanket, I said, I'll get the blankets. The air felt tense once more. Yeah, good night, Melissa shouted and hurried to her room. Once I was alone, I realized everything that had happened over the past few months. I became a vigilante. I met my now girlfriend, who also became a vigilante. We defeated the hero killer and saved a student at UA. I was captured and blackmailed by villains to kidnap my childhood friend and bully. I saved Melissa only to have her taken again. I led the vanguard. I brought Himiko to our side. I defeated all for one. And finally, the days of Night Shot and Oracle the Vigilantes came to an end. We are the future pro-heroes, Night Shot, Oracle, and whatever other names Himiko chooses. After 10 years whoosh as I heard 2 more jet boots land next to me, I said, all wings report in. According to Melissa, Oracle standing by. Himiko said, Red Sun, standing by. All right, who else is there? I inquired. Yes, Tsukuyomi, Krieta, and others are there as backup. Melissa replied. All right, let's leave. Our first mission is this one. It's getting dark. As we all hopped down, we uttered the words, we get the job done. This marks the beginning of Team Nightfall's hero agency and collaboration.
So this was the end of the series. I hope you enjoyed it. To watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel. Till then, bye bye.